Welcome, everyone, to the Melee Madness podcast. Hey, I'm Melee James.
And I'm Melee K.
Oh my god. All right. Let's get right into it, because I think that was our smoothest intro ever, and I don't want to fuck it up right off the bat. And me just talking
Is
about...
it smooth if we keep acknowledging that they're smooth, or does
Yes,
that make them less
it
smooth?
makes them smoother. It makes
I
them
don't know.
it makes them smooth as silk. Let's talk our plays of the week. What we've been playing, and I think it's been pretty freaking obvious what we're playing. Shall I start? Do you want to start? Who wants to start?
Why don't you start this time?
All right. All right. So to start with our plays of the week. So if you've been watching our streams, you'll know that I've been playing a ton of SmackDown versus Raw. This was a game I was super jealous of. I never got to play it as a kid. The reason was I owned an Xbox and I didn't have a PS2, and this was a PS2 exclusive. I didn't know it at the time, but I assumed that this game was going to be multi-platform, and I was crushed as a kid. Crushed because the Xbox brand had Raw, which I thought was a cool idea. And then the PlayStation brand had SmackDown games. They had Here Comes the Pain and Shut Your Mouth and all that. So when SmackDown vs. Raw was announced, I was like, perfect. This is going to be on both systems. It's going to be like this whole versus thing. Xbox is Raw, PlayStation is SmackDown. That's what I imagined in my brain. No, it was just the next line of the SmackDown games. We didn't get shit after that. We got like WrestleMania 21. Yeah, we got WrestleMania 21, which was terrible.
You know,
And
now that you're talking about this, it's made me realize that never really played wrestling games on the original Xbox. I just happened to have the systems at the same time, and I didn't think about it.
yeah, they're
But
totally different games. Like, they're all different. The GameCube wrestling games, the PlayStation wrestling games, and the Xbox wrestling games, even though they're all made, I think, by the same companies, and at the same time, they're totally different with different mechanics. Because one of my biggest complaints about wrestling games throughout the years is that you'll buy one year and then you get used to it, and then you buy the next one and it's completely fucking changed. Like, there's no carryover in the mechanics, the controls, nothing. The gameplay, nothing at all, even though it's a year apart. So, yeah, the GameCube was the one I wanted as a kid for wrestling games. I was a wrestling fan first. During the Xbox, PS2, GameCube era, and I was begging for a GameCube because just at the time it seemed like GameCube was getting the best wrestling games. Their advertising was the best. They were like,
was that Day of Reckoning and
Day of
2?
Reckoning,
Yeah.
WrestleMania 19. They had a whole bunch of wrestling games, and there was just something, I remember the marketing for them. They made it seem like those were the best. PlayStation universally won. But my dad was like, no, we're getting an Xbox. I don't know why, but so we ended up with an Xbox. So I was stuck with Raw 2, and WrestleMania 21, I want to say. And the first Raw is terrible. The second Raw is decent. It's got some good to it. I played the fuck out of it, but it's one of these games. It's one of... Can you hear that?
Oh, yeah.
Every single move, every single counter, every single time you're exhausted, to submit, to get out of submissions, to get out of pins, to do everything in that game is tapping. It's one of those. So you better have strong hands. So that was the thing. That was me as a kid. My parents would walk by and they would listen, and all they'd hear is, "What's he doing in there? I'm playing it Raw." So anyway, so I was very jealous, and so this was the game, this one right here. This was the game I wanted, and I was so jealous. And on our stream, we played it for the first time, and I had a freaking blast. We did a whole season, took about 10, 12 hours or something as Chris Benoit, and I genuinely want to play Here Comes the Pain again, because I'm not sure which one I like better. Like, this one's really good. I have almost no complaints about it. It still has the SmackDown mechanics, which I think are the best mechanics ever. It plays like a SmackDown game. I feel like it's not as punchy as Here Comes the Pain, which might be why Here Comes the Pain wins. But overall, like how you play the game, because people always argue what is the best wrestling game? Is it No Mercy or Here Comes the Pain? And I never got into No Mercy, but Here Comes the Pain mechanics are all around the circle button. Like that's how you grapple, and then circle plus a direction is what type of move you're gonna do. And then X is strike. And so it's very quick, very simple, but then if you know if you memorize all the directions, it can get complicated. So it's still those mechanics, which is great. I want to play Here Comes the Pain again and 2007, but I think this might be in my top 3 wrestling games of all time. No, that's
This
not
one?
not
SmackDown
that's
versus
not fair.
Raw.
It's okay, it's 3 or 4. It's 3 or 4. My favorite ones being the thing is SmackDown 2 was the wrestling game that got me into wrestling. One second.
That's the more notable one.
One second. This fan's pissing me off. 1 second. Feel free to leave this in. Fuck off! You're blowing in my face! That's better. So anyway, Here Comes the Pain. I think I've told this story before. I'll tell it super quick because we have a packed show today. I got Here Comes the Pain. Know Your Role. SmackDown 2, Know Your Role. That's the wrestling game that got me into wrestling. At the time on PS1, I was super into fighting games, and my uncle got me SmackDown 2, Know Your Role. And I literally just thought it was a fighting game. I thought Stone Cold was a fictional character. I thought Kane was... Like, of course Kane's a fictional character. Are you kidding me? Like, it didn't even cross my mind. I went from playing Tekken 3 and seeing King, right, to seeing Kane. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is like Tekken. I played that for about a year, and then all of a sudden I turn on the TV and I see Stone Cold walking down the ring, and I'm like, that's my favorite fighter in my favorite fighting game. What's going on? And I just...
He's real?
Yeah, I had this mind-blowing moment where I'm like, oh my god, wrestling is real. So to me, wrestling will always be real because it was fake first, and then it became real. So I always love that story because I remember that feeling of being like, I thought this was just video game make-believe, and now it's actual people that I can root and cheer for. And it just was like earth-shattering. But anyway, so yeah, SmackDown 2 holds a special place in my heart. It'll always be my number 1. But apart from that, 2007 and Here Comes the Pain are my favorites. This might be 3 or 4, this SmackDown versus Raw. I like the story. I like how offensive it is. I like how you can build up a harem of women. I'm not joking. You literally have storylines in this game where you're just building up a harem of women. It's a masterpiece. So, yeah, I don't know.
I'm surprised to hear that because I don't think it's a terrible game, but it wasn't a game that stood out when it came out.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if that's like a reflection of how terrible wrestling games are now. I don't know if this one's done by Ukes, but I know Ukes was kind of like the team at the time that was doing like all the really good wrestling games. So
there's the Ukes logo.
You look at modern games and it's like it's just the same over and over and over and over again. Like once it hit the 2K whatever, I think it passed 2K14 or 2K15 is like when it just became the same game consistently.
Yeah.
Up until even like this year.
In my opinion, 13 is the last one worth playing. 13's pretty good.
That's the WrestleMania Moments one, right?
That one is the Attitude Era one. And
okay, yeah.
And it was the last one before they started calling them 2K. So it was just called WWE 13.
Yeah.
And that one's pretty good. It's a celebration of the Attitude Era. You get to play through the Attitude Era in parts.
It's like PS3, I think.
Yeah, PS3.
PS3 360. Yeah.
That's
why I'm kind of curious to try AEW as well, because isn't that Ukes again? I know like companies kind of change over time.
Yeah.
But I thought Ukes was getting involved in AEW.
I think so. That one is so weird. The main reason I haven't gotten into Fight Forever, AEW Fight Forever, is that I'm just kind of checked out of modern wrestling. And so even if the game is great or terrible, it's just not really for me because I don't really care about the roster as much. And there is, like, I mean, Sting's in there. I assume Jeff Jarrett's in there, or he should be in there. So there is
Yeah.
wrestlers I would normally care about, but I'm good. If they had an amazing character creator that I could download from, kind of like the modern WWE games have, then maybe I'd be more interested. But they don't. Apparently, they have a really bad character creator. So I'm like, I've heard mixed things. Some people say the game's really bad, and other people say the game is the best wrestling game since No Mercy. But the thing,
Wow.
but the thing is, I think a lot of this boils down to the WWE fandom and the AEW fandom. So it's
Right.
really hard to know if the game's actually good or not without us getting our actual hands on it. Because it really all comes down to the gameplay and how the characters move. And that's why I love SmackDown vs. Raw so much, is like I play it and I'm like, oh, I get this. Everything feels right. All the moves feel right. I really have no complaints about how the game plays. Whereas you play like what I had to play as a kid, Raw 2, and it's like you're just tapping nonstop. You just constantly have to break your controller, which is not good.
Yeah.
And then you have the new WWE games, which I haven't played the latest one, played the one before it, and they're just very uninspired and dull, and they don't feel fun to play. They're more in the simulation side of things. Whereas the early SmackDown era in the early 2000s, it was about fun first. So they knew what
Yeah.
video games were about. So we might get Fight Forever sometime. I would eye it for like a sale or something. But overall, I've heard mixed things. It's kind
It
of like,
doesn't seem like a full price game to me, but I
no.
feel that way about most wrestling games now. Even like what's the lot we bought 22, I think, right? And then we also bought Battlegrounds and stuff as well. I don't even
Battlegrounds
remember
was
like
rough.
yeah, but we bought all of those on like super sale because it like especially with the new ones, right? When you're talking about SmackDown versus Raw, you love the story and stuff. I don't even think we've played the new ones for the story. It's just,
Yeah.
ooh, I download this wrestler and then I fight this wrestler. We do Royal Rumbles and stuff. That's
Yeah,
it.
and that's the thing is I beat this game, but I'm going to keep playing it. We're going to keep streaming it. And I looked it up because the way the game plays out, and this is amazing, is you pretty much go through a whole year. You go from Backlash, which is just after WrestleMania, all the way through WrestleMania, and then you hit credits, and then the game stops. And I checked after the stream, and it actually cuts your save. It's like game over. Do you want to play again?
Oh.
But I like that. But here's the thing. We were leveling up Chris Benoit that whole time. So now Chris Benoit is like a 90, whereas everyone else is rated in the 30s. So if I play again, I better not fucking cross paths with Chris Benoit.
Oh, so it keeps the stats. It's just that it ends your game.
It ends your season, yeah. But here's
Hmm.
the thing is, if you play on Raw, there's a whole storyline. And every month has a new storyline. You play on SmackDown, there's a whole storyline. So that's already 2 years you want to play, and this 1 year took me 15 hours. But even worse, you challenge for the title that replaces that month's storyline. So then you're already missing out on that month. So you challenge during SummerSlam, you're not going to see the Raw SummerSlam story or the SmackDown SummerSlam story. That's a tongue twister.
That is a tongue twister, yeah.
Same for the Intercontinental title. I don't know if the World Heavyweight and Intercontinental have different stories, but I assume so. They're different belts with different levels. And then on top of that, you have the harem storyline. I'm not joking. At any time, the harem can come in, overwrite where you are in the story, and being like, you're on pause for your story. You need to get another woman for your harem. So
It's so cool.
I'm terrible at math, but to actually see every single storyline in this game, what? You'd have to play roughly 7 times? All of
Dang.
Raw, all of SmackDown, both world titles, both minor titles, all the harem stories, and then the harem stories will like overwrite some of these other stories and the world title ones. So like I think more than 7. But yeah, I'm at least doing year 2, if not more than that. But
And that would be per wrestler too, because different wrestlers are gonna have different stories.
no, unfortunately not.
No?
No, it's
So it's just palette swap pretty much?
yeah, so Chris Benoit, like,
Damn, okay.
so like your enemies and your allies and all that stuff, they're voiced by the wrestler, but your character just acts like the Raw guy or the SmackDown guy or whatever.
Oh,
You know what I
okay,
mean?
okay, got it.
So
Yeah,
like
there's no like unique real dialogue to that character.
so
Okay.
Shawn Michaels and Kane and Christian, they were voiced by Shawn Michaels, Kane, and Christian. They were talking in that storyline. But I was playing as
Right.
Chris Benoit. There was no Chris Benoit voice. He was acting like Stone Cold, actually, near the end of it.
Right.
But if Chris Benoit ends up as a side character, so if I'm playing as, Triple H and Chris Benoit walks in, if that's a story, then I'm sure Chris Benoit will be voiced. But then Triple
Yeah.
H will be acting like Stone Cold, if that makes
It's
sense.
so strange.
It's great. But the replayability is great, and if I had this game as a kid, I would have had a very different life. I probably would have never played Halo. I would have had a PS2, and I would have played this even more than I played WWE Raw 2, which I played to death despite being a completely mediocre game. So yeah, that's SmackDown vs. Raw. You're gonna see more of it from me, and if you all get sick of it, I'm gonna be playing it in my own time as well. We're at least doing a year 2, and I'm genuinely excited for it. Am I biased because Vince McMahon's on the cover? That's the question. That's what
It's
I want
such
to
a
know.
great cover,
It is.
honestly.
I genuinely want this on a T-shirt. I want this on a
Yeah.
shirt. That looks great. Also, it has bra and panty matches.
Oh, okay, yeah, sold.
Yeah, which I think 2007 had bra and panty matches. It might be the last one that did, but I'm gonna stream that one as well, which is also considered A tier wrestling game. Well, we have a shared one, but first, let's get to yours, why don't we? So I'm gonna sit
Okay.
back, relax, and hear about all your whimsical tales that you've been doing.
My whimsical tales.
Yes.
Well, didn't we say last time we need like one of those update helicopters that's like, has Kay gotten the games yet? Has she done it?
Yeah, we need
Well,
that.
guess what? News update. I got Final Fantasy,
I
finally!
don't believe you.
It's too far for me to grab it.
I don't believe.
I
Yeah,
would show you, but it's
there's the
too far.
proof.
So yeah, I'm playing Final Fantasy 16. I believe it's 16. There's too many Final Fantasies now, but so far so good. I didn't play the demo, so I know a lot of people played the demo when it first dropped, and they were able to take their save, and then they were able to go straight into the game once they bought it. I purposely didn't play the demo. I just didn't really want to have an ending point and then have to wait for the game to come out, and I just wanted to have like a fresh impression when I got it. So I didn't play any of it until I had got the game. I didn't really look at footage. I think I saw maybe one trailer at most. I really love this game. I think it's really good. I know there's a lot of Final Fantasy fans out there that feel like the combat is very basic. I don't fully disagree with that assessment, but I really like the direction that the games are going in. I think that like just being able to be like active in it and not doing the turn base is kind of a fresh look on Final Fantasy. And I liked that a lot in the Final Fantasy 7 like remake as well, that they were doing that kind of stuff. It still had the ATB meter in Final Fantasy 7. This one doesn't have that. And so it's just straight up combat. I would even equate it to like almost a beat 'em up at this point once you're in the fights. And so yeah, I played maybe like I'm gonna say 2 to 3 hours max. I don't think I've gotten super deep in the game. I'm going to assume that the demo was the first chapter of the game. And so if you're somebody who just played the demo and you decided not to get the game because you're like, this is boring, there's too much story involved in the beginning, combat's kind of boring, I would highly recommend that you either look at some more gameplay footage or that you buy the game and you try it or you borrow it from a friend or something. Because that first little chapter that I was playing, I was like, this game kind of sucks. Like, why did I buy this game? This was not a good idea. The reason being is there's just a lot of like whiny kind of characters. It's got like some of the basic anime type tropes going on with the younger characters. I was like, this is boring. I don't care. The combat, I felt like it was like pretty bare bones in the sense of there was one fight I was doing. I think you saw it, James, where I was doing that fight for like 25 minutes because I just
Yeah.
like kept hitting it and it wasn't doing much damage. And I'm like,
I thought you didn't
this
level up
character feels
enough, or
nerfed.
yeah.
Yeah. And it wasn't that. It was just like in comparison to like it was just a sponge. I don't know how else to really describe it besides that specific enemy was a sponge.
Mhm.
But I haven't felt that way since getting deeper in the game. It kind of goes through like past and then it goes into present day. So once you get into present day, I find that the game completely changes tone. It gets a lot darker. The fights feel a lot more intense. You have a lot more power ups that you can use. There's like a whole like gear system, level up system, which is awesome as well. So one thing that James mentioned to me when he was watching me play, because he's on the fence about if he wants to try it or not still. But he was seeing me use like a wooden sword in training and then like a basic sword in the first like kind of chapter, and he was like the sword doesn't seem like it has weight to it, like it seems super weak. And so we were trying to figure out like, oh, are there other swords, or are you stuck with this sword? Is this like tied to your character, and that's kind of it? But luckily, it's not. You can get other swords. I've gotten one other sword so far, and that sword is, it's not like super heavy duty, but it definitely is more so than the one that you witnessed.
Right.
So I would say that it does feel good. And the thing that I like about this game is that you really feel the weight of each sword you use. So when I was doing the training and I was using the wood sword, it felt super weak and brittle. Like it did not feel very impactful. And you feel that with every swing, whether you're like just viewing it or you're playing on the controller itself. They do a really good job of game feel. And then, like, as I was upgrading my swords, I felt it. I was like, oh, yeah, this is much more powerful. I feel like I'm doing more. Not just by seeing the number that I'm hitting with the damage, but the way that the sword swings. It feels a lot more heavy duty. So I really like that. There's a pretty cool level up system. It kind of reminds me a bit of Final Fantasy X, which I've spoken about before, that Final Fantasy X's grid system is my all-time favorite level up system in any game. If I were to talk about any RPG kind of grid, that system is like perfect to me, and I want to see that in more games. This game kind of does it. So it got the sphere grid type thing, except for the difference is that you kind of just invest points, and it's a lot smaller of a tree. So I don't know if that expands later. Again, I'm only a few hours in, but it looks like it gets a lot bigger. And the other cool thing is that you can reset things. So if you're like, I don't like this build that I have on this character, you can press a button, take all your XP back, and then just recalibrate it into like the kind of character that you want. So it's not exactly like Final Fantasy X sphere system. That one is just immaculate. You can't beat that. You get like so many different things with that, but it looks like it's a basic version of it, and I really like it. Other than that, I mean, I just highly recommend everyone gets their hands on this game. Like, it's to me like a Witcher light game. If you feel like you can't get into like the Witcher series, I would recommend just playing this game because it does a bit of hand holding, like it doesn't feel as difficult as Witcher. It's a bit more linear and in that sense, but it still gives you that feel of exploration. It's still got a very interesting story. It gives you a lot of variety in attacks. You have a dog. You can pet the dog. To me, I was like, this is the best.
I still can't get over the fact that Tears of the Kingdom did not add petting the dog. Like, everyone wants it. Yeah.
I know. So clearly these devs learned the lesson because that's like, you can pet the dog, and then I literally got a trophy for petting the dog a bunch. Because I was just like, oh my god, I could pet the dog. So like after every battle, I'd be like, come here, let's hang out. So yeah, overall, I highly recommend this game. It's super fun. I'm pretty addicted to it. But the reason that I haven't put as many hours into it is because of the next game that James and I are going to talk about.
I wanted to know, do you recommend this game to Final Fantasy fans, Spectacle Fighter fans, or neither? And I remember hearing that the combat designer, the lead combat designer, said he felt this was his magnum opus, and he worked on, I think he was a combat lead on Devil May Cry, or some of the Devil May Cries. Do you feel like this is also like his pinnacle? That's what I wanted to know.
I don't know if it's his pinnacle, but I also can't judge properly until I've beat the game because I've beat the other games that he's done. So that's a lot easier for me to comment on how good those games are. Who would I recommend this game to?
Yeah, between those two categories, because it's a weird hybrid, right?
It is a weird hybrid. I think my issue with the game, if I were to give an issue, is that it tries to appeal to both audiences to a certain degree. I think it's not Final Fantasy enough for Final Fantasy fans. And I think it's not enough of a spectacle fighter for spectacle fighter fans. Whoa. It's not the best spectacle fighter that you're going to find. I think it plays really well, but I think it's a better introductory game. I would almost say if you're somebody who hasn't played a Final Fantasy or hasn't played a spectacle fighter, this is almost like an entry level game for you
For
to
both.
see like what parts you like and then to pursue games deeper within those genres.
Mhm.
So it's kind of a shame that it's coming out later in comparison to so many strong titles in both categories because, you know, chances are that somebody that is going to pick up this game is a fan of one of the two, if not both, which I'm actually a fan of both. I would say that it's a nice hybrid, but it doesn't quite scratch the itch. And that's what I was mentioning about Witcher as well, is like this is like good for people who don't want to deal with the depth of Witcher. But if you're a big Witcher fan, it's a bit too shallow.
Right.
There's not enough there. And it's very, to this point at least, it's very linear.
It did look
It's
very
very point to
witchery.
point. Yeah, and the other thing that kind of bothers me about it is that so far I've had to teleport to locations, so it's very much like, here's a map. Do you want to teleport to your next area? And then
Right.
you roam that area, and then you go back to your map. I think that's a bit lazy. I've seen it in some like games like that, and it's fine. But like this is a next gen system, so why can't we have a whole world rendered? Like, what was it? What was stopping you from that? Was it because you felt it would be too bloated? Maybe.
It
I
is
think you should be
unimmersive, but
giving
it
people the
almost
option.
it is unimmersive, but it almost is appealing if it makes the game shorter. Because I look at these big, huge open world games and I'm like, oh God, I don't want to be, I don't want that to be the only game I'm playing for like 6 or 9 months or something. So
Yeah.
if them making it more like a, let's get to the next beat, let's get to the next beat, let's get to the next beat, if that's going to cut down the bloat that an open world game tends to have nowadays, that is almost a selling point to me. But I guess we're going to find out as you keep playing it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you know, I think that's a good point. I think it is a really good selling point for people that don't want to deal with the huge open world. Like if you had a hard time getting through Witcher or you got annoyed at Zelda, like Breath of the Wild, and you're kind of tired of these games. I mean, I can even name a few Tales games like Tales of I think it's Tales of Arise, the newest one. I can't remember the name. But the newest one kind of felt that way, where it's like you're going through so much land and it gets kind of draining. So if you're the kind of person that doesn't want to deal with that, then yeah, this game is good for that. It comes across as cheap when you're playing a PS5 game that's teleporting you.
Mm,
Do you get what I mean? It's not that I'm like completely against the decision. It's just that I expect that out of like a game that's got a lower production value,
right.
almost.
Yeah, that makes sense. My favorite Tales game. Do you know my favorite Tales game?
I'm right now as a Tales from Monkey Island.
Oh, good, close. I was gonna say DuckTales.
Mm.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I knew it was gonna be something witty.
All right, what? That wasn't witty. That was terrible. I apologize for ruining your intro earlier. Do you want to give it another go? Your nice segue you
It
did.
was such a good
I
segue.
wanted to know
Uh,
more about your opinion.
okay, well, I appreciate it. Stay tuned for more Final Fantasy opinions because I'm going to be diving deeper into that game. I really want to get into it. And just again, like if you've only played the demo and you weren't sold because of the demo, I highly recommend that you look at some more gameplay past that, borrow it, or take the plunge and buy the game and play it because I am telling you the game drastically feels different from the point of doing like the first chapter into going into the actual game. And another thing I forgot to note is this is the first like I think M rated Final Fantasy. Is it M or T? It must
It's
be M
M.
because they kept saying fuck in the first like few seconds and like with it was like fuck. I think the first word was dick or something, and it was weird. And then one of the chicks was horny, and I was so confused. I was like, this doesn't feel like Final Fantasy because like they're like straight up getting sexual, whereas normally in Final Fantasies they kind of like wink at you and whatever. This was like, okay, they're actually like getting it on. But like within the first few minutes, there's just one guy that yells "fuck" 10 times, and I was like, okay, they're enjoying this. Like, they're like,
They're
we can
they're
finally say "fuck."
they have too much freedom now. Hopefully they
Yeah,
don't have
like
freedom to the point where you're fucking a bear or a chocobo.
yeah, no. That's the kind of weird thing about it too. I like that like there's chocobos in it. but it's hard to take it seriously. It's like the game is trying to be so serious in tone, but then you see them riding away on chocobos instead of horses because that's lore specific. It's like this feels kind of bizarre because how do I take this like dramatic storyline seriously while I'm seeing that cute little fucker? Like he's just like kind of, and I guess for Final Fantasy fans, there's a few like little things like you know, there is like a Sid character in it, and that's consistent with all the other Final Fantasy characters. There's a few other nods to it. I don't want to give too much away, but if you are a Final Fantasy fan, there are definitely small nods where you're like, okay, this is still Final Fantasy, and they're at least acknowledging it. But overall, I think they're getting away from that, it seems. It didn't really feel like they were going towards Final Fantasy plot too much when I got deeper into it. Well, besides Final Fantasy, which, like I said, I only got a few hours in because we've been addicted to Pikmin.
A lot.
And so that is the game that we're going to talk about mutually, I feel.
Yeah.
We can't do it justice by taking turns. We're going to have to talk about it.
Let's just
and
yell
just a
over
fair
each
warning,
other.
Yes, exactly. Fair warning, I'm slightly ahead of James, so I'm going to hold a bit of restraint.
Because you're playing it like you're like marathoning it. I wake up, you're playing it. I go to sleep, you're playing it. I'm eating breakfast, you're playing it. Like, are you in a Pikmin competition? Like, what's going on here?
We're in a Dandori battle, and I'm winning.
Is it Dandori of you to be playing nonstop?
I don't know. I don't think so.
I think that's called a problem.
I think so too. But yeah. I mean, that's why I haven't been playing as much of other games, is because I've been so deep into Pikmin, especially the past few days. I feel like I've had to charge the Switch like 2 or 3 times because I've been playing so much.
Oh man! And we have one copy that we've been fighting over. Today,
Yep.
she tried to take a knife at me. This is a cry for help. I'm blinking twice to acknowledge to the people that I need help right now. Because, yeah, she's getting crazy. She's getting crazy over this game. Well, I'm getting crazy, too. I don't even know how many hours I've been playing yet because it doesn't do the proper hour tracking. But
no, we do have the hour tracker.
We do?
So in the game itself, if you want me to reveal the number, I know how long we've both been playing.
Sure. Well, you said it's about the same.
Yeah, we've both been playing for about 25 hours.
Jesus. For me, in a modern game that we've only owned for less than a week, it's been about 6 days. That's fucking crazy. That is crazy.
Yeah, that's going on the internal clock in the game, not in like the Switch's like system where they record how many hours you've played.
Well, that's gonna be more accurate, honestly.
Exactly.
Because the Switch's is like 20 hours or more. We don't really know. Fuck you.
We'll figure it out. Exactly.
So I am a newcomer to Pikmin, and I never liked Pikmin. This is where I think our opinions are different, but also interesting because we both love this game.
Yes.
You've played every Pikmin except for 3. You didn't play 3 for some reason. Was there a reason for you not playing 3? You just didn't get around to it?
I got Pikmin 3 and then I just never touched it. And then by the time I remembered that Pikmin was a thing, it was because they announced 4. That's the truth of it. Is like I played every other Pikmin when it first launched, so I haven't actually played through it like again. And I might pick up the Switch version to try it again. Mm-hmm. But yeah, every 1 and 2 I played at launch, so super early on. And then 3, I got at launch, and then just never touched it. And then when we were about to play 4, I was like, oh my god, I have 3, should I play it? And then we looked at some gameplay, and we're like,
yeah, so I looked at gameplay of 3, because I was like, should I just save my money and play the one that we own on the Switch? Because 3 was originally on the Wii U, and like everything else on the Wii U, except for Nintendo Land. Rest in peace, Nintendo Land, I love you. I miss you so much. But like everything.
3 on the Wii U? I don't even remember it going on the Wii U.
I am pretty confident.
I didn't buy it at launch then. I bought it because we have it on Switch, so I bought the Switch launch of it then.
I am pretty darn sure. Yep. It was a Wii U game, and then they ported it.
Okay, so I completely missed it on the Wii U. That's crazy.
And it got ported over to the Switch. Which I actually think it may have been better on the Wii U because after playing the demo of Pikmin 4, I loved it, and I looked up footage of Pikmin 3 to be like, can I just save the money and play the one we frickin' own? And I gotta say, I looked into it for about 10 minutes, and it looks nowhere near as good as this game. In Pikmin 3, the whole main mechanic is you're controlling three, what are they called? Astronauts? I don't even know what they're fucking called, and I've played 25
We'll call
hours.
them astronauts, but they're
What are
like
they?
the rescue corps.
The Rescue Corps.
Like,
Yeah, you play three
yeah.
team members, three humans, but they're not human. So three astronauts, I like that name better, at the same time. So while
Pilots, maybe? I
pilot.
mean, that could be a,
No, because
yeah.
you're not the pilot in Pikmin 4. Bernard is.
I'm so used to just calling him Olimar because
Yeah.
Olimar has always been the character you
So in
play.
3, I think one of them's Olimar, but then there's another guy and another girl as well.
Right.
And when you're in the overworld, so to speak, you're controlling all three at once, and you all have your own Pikmin. And so you're going like, you go over here, and you go over here, and then you have to swap back, being like, what's going on? Oh, you're dying. You come back. You go do this thing. And I was like, that seems like way too much. I am already
Yeah.
bad at RTS games, and Pikmin 4 just nails it and feels so good. And this is the thing for me, is I am very curious after this game to go back and try 1 and 2 as well, because my very brief memories of Pikmin, and I've talked about this during stream as well, is I believe I rented it on the Wii. So this was either the port of 1, because I believe they ported the first one over to the Wii from the GameCube.
Yeah.
Or it was 2, which was on the Wii. So it seems like every Pikmin carries over to the next system, and then they make a new one, and then that one carries over.
It's like their mid-card game, pretty much. It's like that wrestling match that's in the middle just to make it a little more exciting.
Yeah, it's always in a weird spot. And so I can't remember if
Yeah.
it was 1 or 2 that I played. I really can't. But either way, it was on the Wii. And I hate Wiis. I don't like playing with my Wii. My Wii is old and tired. But yeah, that's the thing is I was not a Nintendo fan during the Wii. I hated everything, how it controlled on it. I hated how the games were built for it. And I hated it. I hated the nunchuck. I hated not the Joy-Con, but the Wiimote.
Wiimote, yeah.
The normal controllers, you had to connect them to the fucking Wiimote, and so the Wiimote would be dangling there, and then they felt cheap. I just hated the system. And I've loved games on the system since. Like, I love Galaxy now, but I would have not given it the time of day on the Wii. And
Right.
so I am very curious to go back and play the 1 and 2 port of Pikmin to see if I like it better. But my only memory of Pikmin was I tried 1 or 2 on the Wii, and I was like, I hate this. Like, I can't get the controls. The motion thing is all over the place. I remember it running at like 20 or 10 FPS, and I'm just like, my Pikmin are dying, and I'm like, aim or something, and I got the Joy-Con here. And I look like AVGN when he's an old man playing with the Wii, and I was just like, "Fuck it, I hate this," and I went back to Halo, because that's all I did back then. And so I was like, "This isn't Halo. I don't care. Leave me and my Halo alone." And so I was apprehensive about Pikmin 4 because that was my memory of it. I'm like, "This is one of the few Nintendo games that aren't for me." And you pressed me on it. You're like, I think you're going to like this one. There's a dog in it. And I'm like, it takes more than a dog to win me over. And you're like, trust me. So we play the demo, and I'm like, the dog won me over. You're right. You were right.
Yeah, I mean, everything about this game looked much better to me.
Mm-hmm.
I just had a suspicion that you would like it. And I'm really glad that you do because I think it's a perfect game.
This is currently my game of the year. I'm trying to think what other games I've played that have come out this year. I've played a lot of Harry Potter. I still need to beat that. Bolt Gun, which is really fucking good. Harry Potter, or Hogwarts rather, is really good as well. I'm scratching my brain to think what other games that have come out this year that I've played. But so far, yeah, Nintendo fucking hit it out of the park. I have very few complaints about this game. The few complaints I have are like little nitpicks, like, oh, I wish this little thing was adjusted just a little bit, because you can always nitpick games. Like, for example, when I love a game, and I love this game, I have to hear every line of dialogue. And so the way they handle dialogue in this game is very old school. And so you have to, every time you're in your home base, if you want to hear every line of dialogue, you have to go to every single squad member and talk to them. But it doesn't say when they have new dialogue. So you have to go to all of them. And then it's not like it has like a dialogue tree and they're grayed out for the ones you already heard. It's just a randomizer. So then I'm talking to this person again. And the dialogue isn't great. I just have to hear it. Like, sometimes there's interesting stuff in there, but rarely. but I just love this game, so I have to hear it all. And so,
like 2% of the dialogue that's interesting. There's really not a lot of
yeah, so
interesting
Kay
dialogue.
is completely skipping all the dialogue, and we have the same playtime, but she is way ahead of me because I'm spending so much time reading every codex, hearing every bit of dialogue. It's
The only
ridiculous.
reason I talk to those characters is to get raw materials.
Yeah. That's
That's
and
it.
you skip that too. You're just like pressing skip, skip, skip.
But even then, if you're talking about a complaint with that, I have to talk to them, skip through their dialogue, and then talk
Talk
to
to them
them
again.
again to get those raw
Because the
materials.
first
That's
time you
pretty
talk to
annoying.
them, it's an introduction. So they're
Yeah,
saying,
exactly.
thank you for saving me, and then you get the mission.
Yeah.
But yeah, so minor nitpicks here and there, but it's interesting because I was not a believer. I was not a Pikmin believer before this, and now this is my game of the year. It right now is sitting, if I had to give it a score, it's like a 9 out of 10 just because of the minor nitpicks and little things here and there. Like, there's still some of the Pikmin quirkiness, because what I remembered with my very distant memories on the Wii was just the frustration of Pikmin not doing the thing you want them to do. And
Oh my god,
you're
yeah.
like, no, asshole, do this, do this. And it was so much worse with the motion controller because you're yelling that at the motion controller as well. Like, I want you to point here, and you have to go like this. So that coupled with Pikmin was a nightmare. There's still some of that. Like, if another nitpick are the ice Pikmin, because
Oh yeah,
it's like
yeah.
they're ice Pikmin, but they act like they're gonna drown. And I'm like, what are you doing? And you have to rescue them when they're getting rained on, and the blue Pikmin are just staring at them like, what's the matter with you? You're literally...
And by default, when you throw them into a pool of water, they just sit there.
Yeah, so there will be times where you want to, like, kill an enemy, and you're throwing blue Pikmin, and it might transfer over to your ice Pikmin. And then the ice Pikmin aren't actually going to kill that thing because it's in water. They're like, freeze? And it's like, no, I don't want you to freeze. I want you to murder. But it's a nitpick, but it's almost part of the charm of the game, which is why I've been avoiding looking at you or anyone play this game, is it's fun not to be perfect at this game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It feels like the chaos and the insanity of managing all these Pikmin and setting them here, here, and here. You could pause and look up people playing it perfectly, but then that's not fun. The fun is, like, you're probably going to get through it, but the fun is seeing your Pikmin be little stupid assholes and grabbing fruit when they're all going to die. And it's like, what are you doing grabbing the fruit? And they're just like, there was fruit. Yeah, but there's enemies everywhere. And they're like, fruit, though. And you're like, oh my god. So it's just, I kind of recommend this game to everybody. If you have a Switch, this game is fucking brilliant. But I want to know how this game compares to 1 and 2 for you, because you love 1 and 2, and you're saying this is a perfect game, and also I think you think it's the best Pikmin.
Yeah, so I was thinking about it as I was playing it, right? And like I mentioned, I'm like, oh, do I want to go back to 1 and 2? Do I want to like re-adventure through that, see if I like it the same way? I don't think I can go back to 1 and 2 if I'm being completely honest with myself, because Owachi or Ochi or however the hell you want
Mr.
to call
Dog.
this dog, Mr. Dog, exactly. He kind of makes the game for me. Just the simple mechanic of being able to hop on the dog and have all your Pikmin there and then you just run around. It makes the game so much better. Being able to command him to go do something while you're doing something else. It's like I can't imagine this series going forward without him at this point. It has to have him in all of the, like, Pikmin 5, whatever else they do.
Hmm.
No matter what new mechanic they introduce, they have to incorporate the dog somehow.
It's
So
interesting that a new mechanic feels like a safety net. Like, so you're adding stuff on top of an existing game, but it makes the game feel more concise to, you know what I mean? Like, because it's like, it's such an
it's
easy way
night
to...
and day for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because like everything I do revolves around the dog. And we also, you and I play differently. Like I've watched you play a little bit. I'm like, oh, that's funny that he's doing it that way, but I'm not going to like tell him what I would do because
Mm.
that would ruin it, right? And vice versa. So you and I play very differently. And obviously I won't talk about any of the parts I'm in that you're not in yet. But one of the things that I enjoy doing in this game is like I will send the dog to go attack, and then I will also go and attack with my actual character. And then I will also have the Pikmin doing stuff. So sometimes I will send the Pikmin to go and just collect items and take it back to the mother base or whatever, to the ship. And it'll be just me and Oachi just like double teaming like some of the
Oh,
enemies
that's so cute.
together,
I
which is a totally different way of playing.
as an emperor of the Pikmin and their lord and savior, I do not get my hands dirty. They are going to die for me, but they cannot expect me to do any of their meager bidding.
Yeah, like I don't know. There's like like if there's, let's say, one of those things that shoots water or something, sometimes I'll just go run up to it and hit it myself instead of like sending Pikmin into it to attack it or
Right.
sending the dogs. So I play very differently. But the point of me saying this is that like in the first two games, you don't have as much flexibility because you're just pretty much like you can still hit things in the first two, as far as I remember. But you rely on your Pikmin so much more than you do in this one. And I think that's really the difference maker is that you have this ability to have a dog that can go sniff out things. You can choose like, hey, go do this. There's night missions. You can have the dog. Have you done any night missions before I talk about
Yes,
these?
yes, I love the glow in the
Okay.
dark CIA missions.
Okay. So you can have the dog like guard like the post while you
Yes.
go around and all this stuff,
Which what
right?
happened to me
So
was I sent him to guard, and then all of a sudden my like base is getting attacked, and I'm like, Mr. Dog, what the hell's going on? And he's just like walking around doing something else, and I'm like, I told you to guard, and he's just like looking happy, and I'm like, I can't stay mad at you, but why are you here? And
yeah, I noticed that like he kind of struggles. I think that's the one thing that in Pikmin 5, I hope that they polish him up and they make it so he's more interactive with the environment because they did a really good job, but at the same time, sometimes the enemies he's just not connecting. There's certain
yeah,
enemies that he just flat out won't be able to do any damage
he
to.
almost has like
And it
an
makes
"Are
no
you
sense.
sure?" like sticky kind of thing. Like
Yeah.
for the Pikmin, you throw them, you can literally just murder them. Like you can throw them off a
Yeah.
fucking cliff, and they will see that, and they will be like, "Do you want me to go next off that cliff?" But Mr. Dog, he almost has like a "Are you sure?" And so anytime it goes to call him into an enemy, you have to press the button like 2, 3, 4 times, and then he's like,
Yeah.
"Oh!" And it's like, I sent 500 Pikmin to their death, and you do nothing. Nothing, mister.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And you've got the strength of plenty of Pikmin, so
I
you
know,
should be like the most powerful
and
thing.
that's another great thing about this game is that you're not stuck limited to how good you are with your Pikmin. You can use your crack rocks to upgrade Mr. Dog, and so like I think my dog can now lift the amount of 100 Pikmin just on his own, and like he can one-shot certain enemies, like, and he can jump in the air. So like the RPG mechanics around Mr. Dog are amazing as well. So if you get stuck in a part, or if there's something you don't think you can do, don't look up how to do it properly with your Pikmin. You try to, like, everything is doable with your Pikmin, but if you're stuck, you have
Experiment.
yeah, you have Mr. Dog, though, as a backup. So you can always come back when Mr. Dog is more RPG leveled up, and he will be able to do that. And I think that's freaking great. So, because
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
some things where you need the exact perfect amount of Pikmin, and it's really hard to get that exact amount for that puzzle. And it feels good to do that, but if you don't want to deal with that shit, just put all your points in Mr. Dog, and he'll take care of that for you. So there's options, and like you said, you play very differently from me. One thing I'm very curious about, and you know the answer to this, is nighttime and the timer and how that's changed from Pikmin 1 and 2 to Pikmin 4. Because I always didn't like the idea of the levels being on a timer, but I like it a lot in this game and how they handle it. Pretty much the overworld is on a timer, but then when nighttime hits, it's like, all right, it's time to leave, and then you have a couple minutes to gather everything and go. But when you're in the dungeons, which is kind of the meat of the game, there is no timer. You have all the time in the world. Is that how it worked in Pikmin 1 and 2? Because it felt like it was more of a hard fuck you off button in Pikmin
It
1 and
is.
2.
Yeah. What you're doing in the day night cycle is just the entirety of Pikmin 1. So I think like it's a nice addition to this game, but at the same time, I'm not really bothered by the timer because I'm so used to it from the other games. And I feel like they give you plenty of time to do your exploration. I think like Where this game is better than that too, though, is that you feel like you have way more because you go through like day cycles of like, okay, I'm going to revisit the area and look for this thing now. I'm going to revisit and go for this thing now. The first game didn't really encourage that kind of behavior. It was more like you have to beat this level by the end of the day.
Yeah, I don't
And
like
that's
that.
that's the key difference is that this game and I think that was the number one difference I noticed with these two. Or I'm gonna compare the first one and the fourth one because I feel like the first and second are very similar.
Mm.
So it's almost like why not just compare one and four? The first game, you feel like you're isolated. It feels like an ET type story. I think I've said this to you before. And so you feel very alone. You're trying to figure out what these creatures are. What is this planet I'm on? How do I get home?
Mm-hmm.
This game does that, but because they give you so many companions, it doesn't feel like you're isolated. It feels like you're doing more of, and I think you said this, Mass Effect. It feels very
Yeah.
like space exploration. And that's a completely different tone if you think about it, right? One is like you're alone. You don't know what will happen if you don't finish this thing at the end of the day. Am I going to be okay? Can I leave this planet eventually? Am I gaming like is it a game over? What is it? In this game, it really I feel is like an easy mode almost where there doesn't feel like there's a lot of consequence in this
Mm.
game. And it's I don't hate that. I like it. But I definitely feel like it helps me with experimenting in the game. At the same time, I don't fear for much in this game because I know I can like easily restart things. I know I can go back the next day and look at this and that and whatever. I just don't feel pressure in this game.
So what happens in Pikmin 1 when you want to explore or get treasure, but the timer is about to stop? Like what happens? Do you have to get all that
Your
treasure again?
Pikmin die, you have to go.
Okay.
I mean, I wasn't really in a position where like I would have that, so it's hard for me to say. I would just do one day cycle, go, then go to the next, then go to the next, and go to the next.
Is it a much
So there
harder
might be
game
some.
to 100%? Because like
I never 100%ed it.
to get all the treasure, I mean, and do all that and everything.
Yeah, I'm sure it is because I never 100%ed it. This game I'm 100%ing so far.
Yeah, this game feels very nice and smooth to 100% because it's like oh, you missed one treasure piece. Well, you can just go back in the next day and your mission is to get that one treasure piece. But
Yeah,
it's more like linear levels instead of an overworld in Pikmin 1.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I love how they built this game and it
There's
feels
way
so
more
good.
options in this. Like the fact that you're like, okay, I'm gonna go into this cave now, and then I'm gonna go do this, and then I'm gonna do this today. And like, I've noticed I'm using a lot more of the tools too. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna look at the map and I'm gonna use the pins, and I'm just gonna set like, here's beacons for what I want to go do today.
Right, right.
So I feel like it's a lot more of like a toy box for me, where I'm just kind of like, okay, let's see what I can do today.
Yeah.
Let's see what I'll find out. But Pikmin 1 to me felt very. And again, I played this at launch, so maybe I'll go back to this game and be like, oh, I was totally like looking into this game wrong, and it totally can feel like Pikmin 4. But the way that I played it was like, I have to get through this level today before the day ends, and I have to make sure my Pikmin are come out alive.
Yeah.
Like that's how I very much view that game. So it wasn't about me like trying to collect everything. It was like, let me get through everything before the end of the day. I felt a lot more of that urgency. This game, I'm like, well, we're going to spend like 5 to 6 days in this specific area. And like today, we're just going to explore 10% and let's see what's there.
It's really funny
Oh, look,
that
there's a cave. Okay.
yeah, it's really funny that the overall mission is there's people out there starving to death and dying. You have to find them. And then I'm like, haha, I found a watermelon. That was my day. And it's like people are dying and then you're like, they'll be
And, I
fine.
mean, I think the other game had a bit of that because it was like, why are we picking up these items? But the fourth game really has that,
Mhm.
where it's like, oh yeah, today I did this like Dandori battle, and I just like I fought a guy, whatever,
Yeah.
and then I went and like picked up 3 rubber duckies.
I am very curious to try Pikmin 1 and 2 after this game. But here's the thing. I haven't felt this in a long time. I don't want this game to end. Because when it ends, I'm going to
Oh,
want more of it. And that's where
yeah.
my prediction for myself is Pikmin 4 is going to end for me. I'm going to be sad. I'm going to want more. But the Pikmin 5 or whatever is going to be like 3, 4 years away. if that. This is also, I want to note, it's sold like hotcakes. Every other Pikmin at this point sold like 100K, if that. And at the
Yeah.
same time, all the other Pikmin took like 100 to get to 100K. This one got to 400K. It's beating out Final Fantasy. What Final Fantasy sold in a month, Pikmin sold in a week. So I hope Nintendo takes note that this is the way to go. This is the one to be, and we want more of it. I will get DLC for this game. If you give me like more areas to explore, new stories, new people to survive, day one purchase for sure. Just to
You know what
experience
I
more of
want
that.
them to do? I hope they do this, but I doubt they will. You know, when I was playing Tetris and you would have certain event weeks, and it's like, oh, you can
Oh
get Kirby
yeah,
skins this week, and you can do this kind of stuff. If
that'd be
this game
money.
does this, I will spend every penny I have to do every single one. I don't even care. If they're like, this week we're going to introduce like a Mario themed Pikmin because Mario was
You
the original inspiration for
you
Pikmin,
you could do that
I'd
so
be so
easily with
fucking
a
happy.
treasure. You could just be like,
Exactly.
we have Nintendo themed treasure, this themed treasure. Oh my
Yeah.
God, that'd be so good.
And
Uh,
they're not shy from putting those things in there. Like you got the Game Boy,
Game Boy
right?
Advance. It's
Like
one of the first.
and stuff, right?
Yeah, you get it in the demo.
Yeah, so like they're not shy with like, oh, this can have other like stuff in it from other things or like references to, our systems. So I really hope they do something like that. I don't necessarily like I'll buy it if it's just regular Pikmin DLC if they're like, "Oh, we added 3 maps or something."
No, you saying that,
But
I will not settle for anything less than your ideas. Go work at
I
Nintendo right now. Leave, and demand they hire you.
Okay, bye.
Yeah.
No, but I would love that if they're like this week we're doing like Kirby and then you're just like you're fucking Kirby and you've got all like the cakes from Kirby
Yeah,
and
yeah.
all this stuff, and it's like, "Oh, what is this mysterious planet?" And it's Dreamland,
Yes. Oh my
right?
God. Can I give you
Like
money right now? Where's my wallet?
that would be so fucking cool. It's like, "Oh, what is this? Oh, it's a Mario Galaxy. We've got the star bits and stuff and like like there's so many tie-ins you could do.
Yeah. That sounds
So I
amazing.
really want that. But I'm nervous to go back to the old ones. Like I said, I've really only done one playthrough. I knew I loved Pikmin, and it was just I didn't at the time feel like there was much replayability to those, which is why I didn't go into them again. But it's been so long. And the thing that I fear about this game as well is that it's such a perfect game and I love it so much, but I also wonder if there's any replayability to it. I don't feel like there's much.
Once you 100% it, I'm pretty sure that's it, and that's game over, and then it's a Pikmin waiting game for DLC or a
Right.
sequel. Yeah.
Right, but I'm saying, would you ever start a fresh file on this? I don't see myself doing it unless it's way in the future.
Probably not, just because there's so many games. Like, I don't know what people think of this, but I consider Arkham City to be in my top 3 games. But there's just so many games out there, and there's so little time. I've only played Arkham City through once. Even though
Yeah.
I've played Arkham Asylum like 5 times, which is funny. There's something that's so easily startable about Asylum, and it's like comfort food. This off topic, but like, yeah, I probably won't play this again, except in the far, far, far future if we never get a Pikmin 5, and
Yeah.
I want that again. But yeah, my prediction is that I'm gonna want more of this, and then I'm gonna try to go back to Pikmin 1, and I'm gonna be frustrated and disappointed because this game is so freaking good, and I just want more of this. And to supplement that, I'm gonna be trying 1 and 2. So I'm probably gonna wait for a sale on that 1 and 2 Switch version if it ever goes on sale. Nintendo isn't great on having
Doubt it
sales.
will. I don't think it
Yeah,
will.
maybe on Christmas or New Year's, but that's the only times, and that's a maybe, but we'll see. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, man, I am just loving this game to the point where, like you said, we have to fight over it. And I recommend this to everybody. If you got a Switch, try the demo. The demo's free. Um, and the demo, not only is it free, it's 3 hours long.
Yeah,
So
you get a lot of gameplay out of it.
and it's pretty much Act 1. And so when you beat it, they're like, hey, you beat the demo. If you buy the full game, you can just continue. That's it.
Yeah.
There's no back in the day, a demo was like, 15, 20 minutes, and it was like one mission in the game, and then goodbye. Nintendo's
And
been
then thanks for playing.
And
Yeah.
Nintendo's really the only company doing demos in tall order nowadays, and I've always loved demos. I can't tell you how many games I've bought because I was like, I never thought I would like this, but demo, like MLB Slugfest Loaded, I'm never going to buy a baseball game, and then I play it, and I'm like, this is so fun. So
I'm addicted.
Nintendo gets it that demos sell games, and this is a great demo game. It's 3 hours, and that's just scratching the surface, but 3 whole hours for free. And then if you like it, I promise I don't work for Nintendo. I promise that's not Miyamoto with a knife sharpening behind my back there. But yeah, this game is just so good.
I do have a small gripe with this game that I haven't really talked to you about yet, and I don't know if you have this experience or it's just my way of playing. And that, again, that's the beautiful thing about this game, is that I genuinely have no clue if I'm just playing it a certain way
Yeah,
where
because
this is
I have
an issue
nitpicks
for me or
as
not.
well. There is little nitpicks, yeah.
So here's my issue. So there's a lot more types of Pikmin in this game. You have quite a few different types.
Yep.
My issue with it is that I feel a purpose for using the water Pikmin a lot. I feel purpose sometimes with the ice Pikmin. The yellow Pikmin I feel like using a lot because they reach the highest, so they're kind of the best ones to get those like out of reach items.
Yeah.
When I first was playing, I was using a lot of the red Pikmin because there's a lot of fire areas and stuff like that. I feel like the Pikmin you start to get later on into the game, there's less and less use cases for them. And so I feel like there's certain types of Pikmin that I use a lot, and then there's some that I could pretty much play the game without.
Yeah, they're very situational, and they are very much like they can pretty much be stored because you can only take out 3 types of Pikmin at a time. And
Yeah.
you didn't even know there was an autofill until you watched me play today. But yeah,
Oh, like a recommended set, pretty much.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I always just hit that recommended, which you don't have to, but it's just like pretty much the game knows what kind of level you're going in, and if you hit the X button, it's like take these ones. This is like based on your library of Pikmin. These are the Pikmin you should take. So I'm like, boom, thanks. And sometimes I will go and shift that around if I'm like, oh, but I could really use like water Pikmin for this. But yeah, the game is very situational, and there is times where you only need certain amount of like certain Pikmin for certain dungeons or certain fights or something. So I find that as well. Like I haven't used the red Pikmin in quite a while because it's like you only really use the red Pikmin when there's fire-based enemies. That's it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there's no point to use them over the blue Pikmin. Like
because the blue Pikmin will go into the water.
Yeah.
And it's like there's so much of this game that's like water based.
Yeah.
So like why wouldn't I just bring the blue Pikmin with me? And then the ice one, it's like, yeah, I use the ice Pikmin. I've found that I don't encounter nearly enough ice Pikmin. I feel like I have so few of them in my like list of Pikmin.
Yeah, and I think that's by design.
Like I wish I had more, which is fine. But yeah, I tend to go like yellow, blue, and then ice, and the rest of them, I'm like, I don't really have a purpose for you.
Yeah. There's been more that I've just recently gotten, and there's ones that are mode exclusive. So my favorite Pikmin are the glow-in-the-dark CIA Pikmin. They're only available during night missions. That's it, and they're OP as fuck. I just love their design. I love how they look, and I love that they glow. I love those little glowy bastards, but they pretty much have the power of all Pikmin, and they auto teleport to you, but because of that they only are available at night missions, which are like full on attack missions. They don't play like the rest of the game. But yeah, apart from that, it's more like the level design comes forward instead of like the combat design, if that makes sense. I don't know if I'm phrasing that properly, but pretty much it seems like they built a level and they will build a fire level. Therefore, you bring in the fire Pikmin. Or they'll build a level where you have to break a lot of stuff. Therefore, you bring in the rock Pikmin. But I don't know. I have no really complaints about that. I like it because I've been using the autofill, so it hasn't even crossed my mind. So maybe now that you know that there's an autofill, it won't be as nitpicky for you. because it's more about like,
But it's not even about the autofill because at the top it says the suggested Pikmin. All I really learned from the autofill is that I could just press a button instead of manually doing it
oh,
myself,
okay,
really.
yeah.
But my issue with it is like, why have you not added more mechanics to this, like to the levels where it feels more necessary to rely on the other Pikmin? Why is it that I feel like I can do most of this game with just these Pikmin? I mean, of what I've played so far,
Mm.
anyways, right? Maybe this changes. But everything I've played so far, it's like, oh, I only need like really two. If you only gave me two or three type of Pikmin, I'd be fine. But you give me more than that.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of like how it is because one of my complaints about modern games, and this is why I don't get into everyone's favorite game, Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild, is those games are very much like you can do anything in them. And then I'm like, what's that? Like, you can tackle these problems in any possible way, but then I just do them in the most like basic, straightforward, standard, logical way. And then you look online and people are building like these super wild, wacky robots. And I'm like, I don't have the time or patience or anything to do that. I just want to play the game as fucking intended. So this
Yeah.
game, I kind of like how it's very much like, look, here's what you want to fucking do kind of thing. Here, just go about it this way. You could totally have this game where it doesn't recommend you Pikmin and it just kind of gives you your Pikmin and you're like, feel it out and you die a lot more and it'd be a lot harder of a game.
Yeah.
And maybe some people would prefer that. Not
I think I
me.
would prefer that.
Not me. I would probably not like this game if that was the case. If it was just
But
like you're
it's
dead.
so easy. It's so easy to identify like what you need.
Yeah,
So why do you have to
sometimes.
tell me?
Sometimes. Well, I mean, you can totally ignore that and go your own route, but it's just not recommended. Like, for example, there's missions that are totally in the dark, and you can enter those missions before you upgrade your headlamp. But they're like, look, you're gonna get your shit kicked in if you do this. You might as well fucking wait until you upgrade your headlamp. And I
Mm.
appreciated that to be like, okay, thank you, game, for not wasting my time. But the game could have just not done that and not told you anything, and then you would have tried it. And then me personally, if I didn't know about the headlamp upgrade, I would have just forced it and forced my way through that mission and not had fun and like lost a bunch of Pikmin and all this stuff just to find out that there is a fucking headlamp upgrade later. That's how another game would handle that design. But this design is
Yeah.
like a you can try it, but just letting you know, the scientist is gonna make this mission way fucking easier if you just wait a day. I'm like, oh, thanks. And so the game is like, the game's on a timer and it doesn't fucking waste your time, but it also feels like, I don't know, it just feels great. Like the flow, like game flow is so important to me. And with the type of game design that we're in now, where everything is so like you're at your own disposal, just do whatever, spend 500 hours in a game. I'm like, no, I don't want to spend 500 hours in a fucking game. I want a good, clean, polished, streamlined experience. I'm paying like so much money for games nowadays. I don't want to like have to make the game fun. If the game isn't fun, then I'm not going to play it. And Pikmin's really fun because the game's like, here, you probably want to do this. You don't have to do this, but this is probably what you want to do. And I'm like, oh, thanks. Got it.
You don't think it's too much hand holding?
No, I mean, the game hasn't been hard yet. I don't have the comparison of the previous games, but I really don't have any
No,
complaints.
but not even comparing to the other games, just like I feel like the game in general, just as a standalone, if I'm judging it, it holds your hand a lot.
The only time I felt like it was handholdy, was that one time, and this was a funny moment where we did this on stream, and the day was done, and I had to go get my Pikmin back, and I'm like, where the fuck are they? I can't see them, and it turned out these assholes were bashing their heads into berries that they didn't even have to get. And I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? You're gonna die. What the fuck? And I literally didn't have time to get them, so I'm like, fine, go fuck yourself. You're dead. And then the only time I lost Pikmin was this, and the game showed me them dying, and it was the most fucked up thing ever. Like
Oh yeah,
they
yeah,
just
yeah.
slowly died, and I'm like, oh my god, that was horrible, horrible. But then the game said, do you want to rewind and fix that? And I'm like, what? And so there's a Prince of Persia rewind feature to make it so you don't have your Pikmin suffer and die. this is the only complaint I'll have about the hand-holding. That was not explained in the mechanics whatsoever. It's not like you invented a time travel feature with your scientists, which they could have done. There wasn't like that cost you currency to do, which I think they should have done. It was just it was a go back and fix. No other complaints about anything in this game. I think the game is really well made and the difficulty level is really well designed, except for that one moment. And that didn't even really...
I assume... Sorry, go.
And it didn't even really affect the game one way or another. And even that is like a nitpick. Because it was like, oh, I lost like 2 Pikmin. Whatever. It was probably done to avoid kids getting traumatized by seeing these Pikmin get murdered. I honestly wouldn't even complain.
You see, by the way, in the other ones.
Yeah, I wouldn't have even minded it if they just explained that the scientist invented like a time travel feature, but it only works for the past 5 seconds, and then they pulled the Prince of Persia. But the fact that it's a mechanic that's not explained in the story, and I've been listening to the whole story, it is not explained at all how I was able to fucking rewind time and save my Pikmin's life. If they just explained it, if they just said, oh, yeah, you have a little dial. You have the dial of destiny on your fucking chest, and you can go...
There you go.
You go... And then I'd be like, fine, I don't care. And then it's like every time you use it, you have to use some of your crack rocks. I'm like, good, that's fine.
So I assume that mechanic's in place because there's a lot of auto-saving.
Mm.
And so it's probably like a chance for you to do that. But obviously, yeah, it's weird that it doesn't explain it in the story. And I just feel like there's a lack of consequence by putting that in.
Right.
I want to be like, holy shit, like, you've dealt with the clamshell, right? I think I saw you playing that right before we started filming. And I lost 25 Pikmin to that fucking thing. Because I was, like, whistling to call them back out of this clamshell.
These Pikmin are dumb.
And they did not run fast enough, and all of them done. And I was like, holy shit. And it was like, okay, I went from having 60 Pikmin to like 40, and I was like so traumatized by it. But I was able to rewind, so it was like whatever.
Here's the thing that the game does so well that I've missed from game design. If you played this game how the average player plays games, which is not how I play games, I think this game would be a lot more difficult. What I mean by that is when I play an action RPG or an RPG or anything with grindy mechanics, I explore everything and I get everything, and you're rewarded for that by the game becoming easier. I think the average player, they just go, oh, my mission in this game is to rescue everybody. Okay, I don't care about the treasure. I don't care about that point A to point B. We're not like that, right? At least I can't speak for you, but I am not like that. You are maybe a little bit.
Depends on the game for me. It really depends on the game.
You are 100%ing this game. Like,
yes.
Gameplay-wise. And so
I'm 100%ing, I'm, like, exploring everything in this game.
Do you think the average player is doing that?
I don't think so, but I think this game really encourages it.
It feels great to do, and I love collectathons, and it feels great to do it in this game, but... I
don't think people are 100%ing the side characters want them to do. But I do think in the environments, they're seeing that number and they're like, oh, I've explored 75%. Okay, I might as well do the other 25%. Oh, I'm at 99%. What's going on? But I think there will be some people that give up at the 99% because sometimes there's this treasure that's buried that you literally have no way of knowing unless you're, like, near it.
I think that, and this is just a guess, but I think that the average player of this game, the average player, so not the people that are on a podcast talking about it for almost 2 hours. The average player of this game will see their main objective in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, say, that's my objective, that's what I'm doing. I might grab a couple Pikmin along the way, I might grab a treasure or 2 along the way, I might grab 1 or 2 upgrades, but ultimately, I am beating this game in 6 to 8 hours, not our 25-hour run, and we're not even close to being done yet.
That would surprise me, though, because I don't know, like, again, I haven't beat the game, but I would feel like a lot of people be complaining how short the game is if they're not 100%ing these areas.
I mean, that's just my knowledge from how people play games, and that's my experience. Like, for example, Spider-Man on PS4. I 100%ed that game. I actually platinumed it. And I just happened to do everything because I wanted to hear every line of dialogue. I wanted to do every story mission, and the game was super easy. The DLC sucked, and this is off topic, but I'll get to it. And I had a lot of complaints about that game. A lot of people consider that game amazing. I had a lot of complaints about that game. When I would go to people and they'd be like, "What? That was a perfect game." Da 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 da. Like, what are you talking about? And I would go into
Yeah.
depth about those complaints, and I won't go into them here. But I would have a laundry list of complaints on the Amazing Spider-Man game, and they all looked at me bewildered, and they're like, "That wasn't in the game." And I'm like, "What do you mean? It was when you do this, 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 this." No, that wasn't. And then you learned. They were like, "Oh, no, I did the main mission. I did the main mission, and that was it." And I was like, oh, okay. Same thing happened to me when I played Red Dead 2. Red Dead 2 took me like 9 months to beat.
Yeah, but I think you're talking about very different games because I think this game encourages a collectathon and those games don't encourage it the same way.
I mean, Spider-Man 2 had side missions, and they all had narrative story. And then it had the whole suit mechanic. You
Yeah.
wanted to collect all the suits. And then Red Dead 2, you want to spend your whole life in that because all the side missions, all the story content, all that stuff. And that has collectibles, and that has everything. And
No, I
people...
think it's different still because you have in this game, it's literally just like find Olimar and find other people that are missing and power your ship. I'm just going off of what I remember.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't go like, hey, there's a side mission over there and there's this and this and this and this. Spider-Man and those kinds of games, they do that where it's like there's so many options. This is like you have 3 story missions, that's it.
Yeah, and
Pretty much, right?
I think the
But
average
I'm saying
person is
that
just doing those 3 story missions, and then they're
I
gone.
think the average person in a game like Spider-Man or Red Dead or whatever is going to ignore some of those side missions because they see so much shit. But the story itself has like so many different things to do in it. But I'm saying Pikmin, if you just focus on the main mission, there's like nothing to do. Like, I think that Pikmin is way more about exploration. So I would be. I'm not saying people are like 100%ing it the way we are. I would be stunned if people were not exploring this game more than they do with other games.
Here's the
I
thing,
can understand in Red Dead, Spider Man, Witcher, Batman, all of these games if they're not doing that because the story continues to string them along. But in Pikmin, I feel like it doesn't string you along the same way. It's
like right now, I'm looking at
it's a,
my character grabbing like these 2 pieces of treasure, and then they can't get past the block path because of there being water in the way. What my brain goes is like, okay, let's figure this out. But I think the average person that is buying this game goes, okay, fuck it, let's just get through it. Because in the dungeons, you can find the next section really quick. And ultimately in the dungeons, your goal is really only to get the survivor. But every dungeon is filled with treasure that gets you resources, and those resources get you upgrades. I think the average person is going point A to point B. Now, it's designed in a way that it's most rewarding if you play it 100%, and it's most fun. But just like kind of path of least resistance, I think the average person, and you can't even pull this because these people wouldn't even care to take a pull on a video game. They're playing this game just to go home and have a good time, and that's it. And then they move on and they play the next game. So I would bet money that the average person is playing this game and they're like point A to point B, and they're still having a good time. Like you still have to do puzzles to get from point A to point B, but they might see that sparkling strawberry in the distance and they're like, "Meh, who cares? It's a +1 on my ticket." I think this game is great, and I think it rewards players like us, and that's what I like. Is I like that old game design of if you 100% something, it's very Metroidvania in this way actually. If you 100% it, way easier game. There's people that think like Super Metroid is the hardest game ever because they just go path of least resistance, point A to point B, and it was like you look at them playing and you have 2 health meters. You can have 10 at this point. How the fuck did you even get this far? So it's just kind of I'm speaking more of like the diehard crazy gamers, the ones that will watch this lovely podcast, the ones that are insane like us and how they play games, versus the average casual person that is just sees this game, sees the cover in the store, and they're like, that looks neat, and they just pop it in, and then they beat it.
I don't think this game is rewarding for those kinds of people, though.
Which is why Pikmin's always suffered in sales as well.
Yeah, because like I would just be stunned if people were not at least getting like 50% of each level done.
Which 50%, as opposed to our 100, will make the game like twice as hard. So if you think the game is easy, like imagine having your Pikmin halved, your resources halved. You don't have like, because my character is like maxed out pretty much, and I have 1,000 Pikmin. But imagine if you're playing these same levels and you had to be like, I only have 10 Pikmin because I haven't grinded them. I only have this many resources. But I'd be curious to talk to someone that's doing that and see if the game is way harder. Because I think the game would be way harder. And so,
Yeah.
Long story short, this game rewards creativity and exploring. And I love that. I love that. And I would bet money that Nintendo probably did research and they were like, make the game easy for these people. The more you do in the game, the easier it gets. And the game is hard if you just play it like a casual person that's like, I want to get through this game 6 hours. Let's go. Kind of thing. I remember I played BioShock that way. The first BioShock, because the release date was really close to Halo 3. And I'm like, I don't care. I just want to get through this fucking game. I don't care because I don't want to be playing anything when Halo 3 comes out. And the game was hard as balls for me. And it's a shooter, and I should be good at shooters, but BioShock felt so fucking hard to me because I was just point A to point Bing it. But I think, I mean, this is a huge discussion. I would say that the average gamer is a point A to point B person. Like,
I agree with you. I do think people are point A to point B. I just also feel like this game purposely pushes people not to be like that.
That is true.
And I think people move in the direction that the game pushes them in, and it's oftentimes the people who are what you want to call quote unquote hardcore or whatever the hell you want to call it. The people who are playing the games and who are talking about them at this length, those are the people that are going to push the boundaries of a game and try to break it and do it in creative ways. Majority of people are just going to play a game as intended, and I think this game handhelds does like a hand holding type thing where it tries to force you into picking up items along the way. It tries to force you to do all of this stuff. I don't think this game is the type of game that encourages, oh, just look for Olimar and that's it.
I don't think it encourages it. I just think it rewards those that will go above and beyond and get everything.
I mean, it's me and you speculating. We won't really know. But if anyone is out there watching us rant about Pikmin,
Yeah.
I want to know, have you played this game? If you are playing this game, are you 100%ing each area? Are you just jumping along to the next place? How are you playing this game? What stands out to you?
Yeah, and like we said, I think everyone's going to be playing this game differently. I think we're playing it almost similarly because we're both 100%ing every single area. Like, you're playing the way, because you unlock the future areas, and the game is like, go save the next person, but I'm like, fuck them. I literally 100% an area completely before I go to the next zone.
Yeah, I don't even go to the next area
Yeah.
unless I've already 100%ed an area.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to like, okay, now I'm in this new area, I'm interested in this, and I'm going to forget about getting the other stuff in the other place because it's not interesting anymore. I'm just like, no, let's just get this all out of the way and then go to the next one. And I had it where I was 99% on one of the areas, and then I was like, do I really want to waste a whole day for just 1%? But I did.
Mm-hmm.
I did. I was like, you know what? We're going to spend it. And I found it like halfway through the day, and I was like, all right, I'll just end the day, whatever.
And the thing is, the water Pikmin are pretty damn OP. But if you remember, getting the water Pikmin in this game is actually kind of hard. Like, if you want to do them, if you want to get the water Pikmin as soon as possible, you have to do some serious bullshit to, like, get up to that point and to get them. At least the way I played it. I don't know how it turned out for you, but it was bullshit.
Refresh my memory on how you get them.
It was like you needed, because you had so little Pikmin at that time, and you had to build a wall, so Mr. Dog can't go up the wall. So then you order your Pikmin that you have to, like, go get the thing, but you also needed to freeze the water, and so then you're stuck with ice Pikmin that have the frozen water.
Yeah.
So then you have to unfreeze them so that they climb up with you, but then now the water is not frozen, and so you...
It was like, you need 30 ice Pikmin to freeze this area, and then you have to go,
You
and
had
then yeah,
to
there's
you
a
had to keep
wall, and then
freezing and
you go up.
unfreezing.
Yes, I
And it
remember
would have
that.
been
Yeah.
way easier to just wait until you increase your Pikmin cap and then come back later. But I wanted them ASAP, and water Pikmin are so OP. It makes me wonder, are people playing the game without water Pikmin? Because you probably could, right? You probably could just never get those water Pikmin and go to the next area.
No, I don't agree with that.
I think
There's
so.
I don't think you can play this game without water Pikmin. They're the essential. If I were to say this game is centered around one Pikmin, it's the water Pikmin.
But there's such a bitch to get. Like, you might need them eventually, but, like, I think you could play a good amount before we got
You can
them.
probably play, like, if you're just speeding through things, 3 to 4 hours before you really, 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 truly need them. But like, I think the water Pikmin are the main Pikmin I use.
Also, another thing in the game, in all the side quests and everything, by the time you get the side quests, at least if you're 100%ing it, you tend to already be done them, like several
Yeah.
tiers. All the side quests are in tiers, but they have dialogue to be like, what? You already did this? So it's
Yeah.
like the expectation is once you get the side mission, that's when you start going for it. But if you're 100%ing it, you're already going to be done them.
Yeah.
So it's like Nintendo is assuming that people aren't gonna be at that level, but they also have a point in play to be like, if they are at this level, then pump up this dialogue to be like oh shit, you already did this kind of thing. So I think
I
there
think
is.
it's kind of weird though, because I think a lot of people will end up getting those before like they talk to the person. Like I especially for me, I know we're 100%ing it, but there's so many where I just walk up to them. They're like, "Oh, you did this already? Oh, what? You did this already too? And you did this, and you did this, and you did." And it's like, why didn't they like space this out better?
I think it goes back to what I was saying, is that the average person is probably not doing those until they see it on their mission, and then even that you
I
could
need
probably.
to go to the streets and interview random people and figure this out because
That's
I'm just
true.
not
That's the only way.
convinced
That's
that
a good
people
video
are
idea.
not collecting
All
things.
right.
How are they not collecting
Here
things? This is a
it
collect it's an exploration and collection game. If you're playing this game, that is why. You are not like, you know
Here,
what I
in
mean?
short, I think there is many different ways to play this game. I think we're playing it pretty similarly, even though we tackle like the fights and stuff a little bit differently. Like our modes of fighting are a little different. But I think there's a lot of different ways to play this game, how to tackle the levels, when you tackle the levels, what Pikmin you bring in with you, when and when not to get the treasure. There is so many different ways to play this game, which is why I think looking up gameplay of other people playing it is a spoiler. The story does
Yeah.
not fucking matter, but I don't want to see anyone, I don't want to see any gameplay of this game until I beat it, because I don't want it to color how I'm playing the game and experiencing it for myself. But I guarantee you, once I
It's the
beat it,
solving of puzzles. Yeah, I
yeah.
get that.
But the whole game is like a puzzle, like, and how the game flows for you, I think, is kind of a puzzle, and that's kind of what I'm getting at. Is
But
everyone's
you
gonna
know,
play differently?
you say that it spoils it for you. Watching you play didn't spoil it for me. Because I literally didn't do things the same way that you did them.
Hmm.
So I get what you're saying. I think it really depends on your perspective and how you play games. But seeing you play Pikmin was like zero spoiler for me because I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, that's nice. You did that. I'm going to go do this thing instead. I'm going to do this way. And I watched you because pretty much you started out ahead of me and then eventually I got ahead of you. So now when I watch you, I'm already like past that point that you did something. And I'm like, you do it so differently.
Right.
Like, it's insanely different. And like, I don't mention it to you because I don't want you to change your play style,
Yeah. It's more.
but it's like, there's such huge differences in how we play that like you could play a game in one way and never even touch it the other way.
Yeah, it's more like how my brain works. It's like I don't want to see something that's more optimal for me, because then I will change how I play and I will be like, "Oh, fuck, that's what I got to do." For example, there was one part where um oh god, what was it? There was one part of the game where I was like, I don't think I can do this yet. Like, this doesn't seem achievable. I think I'm missing like a certain type of Pikmin, and I wanted to leave it there I wanted to leave the item there because I'm like, oh, is it something I can get back to? And then spoiler alert, if you're at the point, at least in my experience, maybe not though. Maybe if you're skipping Pikmin, this isn't true. But if you're at least for me, if you're at a point in the game, you can do that thing. And so I didn't.
What do you mean?
Like, if there's a puzzle that you're stumped on, it's not that you have to come back to it. Like, you can do it. You have the
Okay,
tools.
so you're pretty much saying it's not a true Metroidvania and that, like, you have to actually get further in the game in order to come back to something.
So
Is that what
far,
you're trying
there
to say?
hasn't been any backtracking mechanics. At least for me, it's all been, as long as you're 100%ing the game along the way, which you don't have to do, you never have to leave treasure and come back to it. So pretty much there was a point where I was like, oh, this is super high up. There's no way I can get that. Surely I just need like a new type of Pikmin that can get there. And then I looked it up, and I literally just looked it up to be like, I need to come back to this, right? And this was early on in the game. And so the guide was like, here's what you do. And I'm like, oh, fuck. And I was like, I didn't want to know that, but I thought I needed to come back with Pikmin, but it was just a puzzle I did not get.
I think you're mostly right. There's one area that I did have to go back to, and I won't say what it is, but I think you've already done it, but just in case, I won't say it. But there is one area I had to go back to.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Yeah, so I think, like, for the most part, you're correct, because, again, like, the dog is really the difference maker here. You can make your dog do so many things with buffs that it's like, a lot of the times my solution is, okay, my dog's just gonna do it instead, right? I think you using the, like, amount of Pikmin is the perfect example. Okay, yeah, I'm not gonna bring like 60 Pikmin over to this. I'm just gonna have my dog go and give him like 20 Pikmin or something. Like, you know what I mean? So there's a lot you can solve that way. There are some puzzles where you kind of like can split off with your dog as well and stuff like that. And there's so many different ways of tackling it. 99% of the time is true. There was one area I had to backtrack.
Right.
There was no way for me to do it in that moment.
Well, we've been talking about Pikmin for so freaking long. Do you have any final Pikmin notes?
If you're gonna play any Pikmin game, please play this one. If you didn't like 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever, it doesn't matter. You're going to like this one. This is a fantastic game. It's so good. If you're somebody who's played through the entire series and you're like, oh, I don't know, they're changing stuff, they're good changes. They're really good changes. I really like this game. It's not a perfect game. There are things I have an issue with, but everyone will play this game and everyone will like it. I'm convinced.
By force.
I would be hard pressed to find someone who doesn't like this game.
And if you don't like it, we will find you.
No, but you know what? If you don't like it, I really want to know why, because whoa, scary. I'm curious. I want to know, like, what is it that turns you off from this game? The only argument I could think of is you don't like cutesy games or you're not a Nintendo fan.
True. All right, that's Pikmin. Everyone go play it. No matter how you play it. And also, I think if you play it short, you're going to be playing it hard. But if you play it long, you're going to be playing it nice and smooth or something. Pikmin! All right, now it's time for... What the fuck is going on?
Okay, wait.
In gaming.
You're so loud that this microphone was lighting up the whole time.
What the fuck is it? In gaming. All right, let's get to the fucking news.
I feel like you talk loud enough for like an entire building.
Yeah, why do you think we're not allowed to have neighbors? News story number 1. You ready for this, folks? Okay.
No.
Okay, good. Goodbye. News story number 1. I can't pronounce his first name, but I know how to pronounce his last name. Allow me to butcher this. Masahiro Sakurai. I can't imagine Smash Bros. Without me. I'd like to keep working with Nintendo. Here's the article. What's the future of the Smash Bros. Series? A new game seems inevitable given the franchise's popularity, but will Smash Bros. Development chief be along for the ride? In a new video, Sakurai said, I can't imagine a Smash Bros. Title without me. In the latest video, published to his YouTube channel, Sakurai on Creating Games, he reveals he didn't learn about 2008 Wii game Brawl until the E3 when Nintendo announced it to the industry, and ponders the future of the series. In quotes, "The question now is, what happens next time?" Sakurai asks. I mean, whatever comes after Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, one option would be to separate the series from its original creator, but for now at least, I can't imagine a Smash Bros. Title without me. You might think that's a natural stance for someone in my role, but I say so speaking objectively. I feel the same way President Iwata did when we formed the team for Smash Bros. Brawl. At present, we don't have someone who can simply take the reins. Smash Bros. Is a massive, important title for Nintendo, so it's fair to assume there will be another one at some point, but it's going to take some work to figure out exactly how to make that happen. For my part, I'd like to keep working with Nintendo however I am able. Sakurai goes on to clarify that these comments reflect his opinion at the time, so they may change, but they do suggest Sakurai will return to the helm the development of the next Smash Bros. Game. When will this come along? That's it. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm in full agreement with that. I'm really bad with remembering who is who, but I do know Sakurai is amazing. And I remember that when Melee was first coming out, like the N64 Smash was out, and then Melee was coming out, and internet was still like fresh thing, and they used to do like a lot of polls and stuff like that. I believe it was him. I don't want to misquote, but I feel like it was him. They did a bunch of polls to ask who do you want in the next Smash Bros. And they got like a bunch of characters, and I believe James Bond was one of them because GoldenEye. Banjo Kazooie was on there. Wario was on there. There was a bunch of characters that were on there. And he did his best to incorporate who he could. I watched this like 2-hour documentary that was insane just to like hear about all the work he did with it. But he was like super in tune with what the community wanted, and so he fit whatever characters he could into Melee. And in Ultimate, they ended up adding all the other characters that they couldn't add at the time. And so he still remembered this list from like ages ago where it was like, the community wants these characters to be in the game, and they were working down to the wire. There was like, I think one character that they missed literally by like a day or two because they were just squishing in so much into the Smash games that it was impossible. They couldn't do it. So he really understands like what Smash Bros players want. I remember there was a blog as well, and they would talk about like, oh, the different glitches and stuff that would happen and whatever. So like he's very in tune with the community. I can't imagine anyone else taking the reins that would truly understand like what people want in a Smash Bros game. And it's hard to say if anyone can ever be trained up to that, because I think like the industry is losing a lot of that passion. A lot of people are just looking at games as like, here's a way to make more money. And there's an old guard of people that really look at games as like a creative outlet. And those people need to be preserved, and they need to be on these projects for as much as humanly possible. These are the kinds of guys that are going to burn themselves to the bone and work overtime. I think he was also the one that was like, literally, he only took one sick day because he was getting surgery or something. But like, he was working through the whole game to make it to development. So I agree. I don't see, and I don't think that's healthy. Like, I'm not encouraging that behavior either. Like, oh yeah, you should literally go kill yourself to build a game. But I'm saying,
You want to
like,
make a game? Kill yourself.
kill yourself. But what I'm saying is that the passion is so clear, and the connection to the community and understanding that the games are built for people's enjoyment, and that's what they're for. I think these people have that built in their DNA, and I don't think that a lot of people nowadays have that built into their DNA anymore. So you'd have to find someone that cares that deeply. And you know what? The sad truth is there is going to be a Smash Bros. One day that doesn't have them on it. That's just inevitable. But I hope that someone else steps in that understands, that really honors him. Because it's just so insane how much they care about their community with those games.
My favorite Sakurai quote is, "Never ask me for anything ever again."
Yeah, exactly.
I chose this news article because I was kind of surprised, because I swear I heard during the last Smash, which was Ultimate, right? I remember, I swear him saying this was his last one, this was it, and he was like effectively retiring after that. But I think he said that about the
Yeah,
Wii one as well.
I think he did say that, but you have to wonder, is that because he's just gotten out of a grueling cycle and he's like, I can't do this anymore?
Mm.
Or is it like, okay, this is the last one because when is the next one going to come out? You know, it's kind of like, I think of Tom Brady, right? Like, Brady didn't want to leave football.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like similar where he's like, okay, it's time to retire. Okay, never mind, I'm back.
Undertaker,
Okay, it's time to
not leaving
retire. You know,
wrestling.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, wrestlers are very notorious for this. So I kind of view him the same way, but yeah, I'm hard pressed to think of who in the industry, and there's probably nameless people that we don't know behind the scenes that are like this passionate and this hardworking and that really want to make these things happen and really understand to the core like what video games are about. But I can't think of a big name
Yeah,
that could take over.
to me, this was good news because I can't imagine anyone else at the helm of Smash Brothers if he stepped out of development from the next one. And of course, there is going to be a next one. It's probably not going to be on the Switch. It'll be on whatever's coming next. But
Yeah.
it would definitely make me less interested or apprehensive because I loved Ultimate so much. I played that one to death mainly because of the collectathon mode. So I really hope that makes a return whenever this one comes about.
The spirit mode, you mean?
Yeah,
or?
the spirit mode. Yeah. It was so fun and so addictive. So if he stepped down like I thought he was going to, I would have been like, you really have to prove to me this time that I want this game. But with him in charge, I am fully on board. And he's saying this as if Nintendo may not accept him or something, it sounds like. But of course, Nintendo's going to accept him.
Yeah.
How much does Smash sell every single time? It's a huge event in gaming every time a new Smash Brothers comes out. Like, I remember I lined up for the Wii U Smash Brothers. It was just called Smash Brothers Wii U and 3DS, right? And I lined up for that one, and it was like
Worst
this.
name.
Yeah, it was a terrible name, but I really liked it. Ultimate was my favorite, but I really liked the Wii U 3DS one.
You are wrong, sir. Ultimate is not the good one.
Yeah, oh my god. Anyway, we've been in that fight every single day of our lives, but it was a whole event and it was so cool to see. It's probably the last midnight launch I went to was the Wii U 3DS Smash. But I would love to go to another one for whatever's coming in the future. So this was just a little bit of good news that he is back on board and he's back interested. Plus the dude looks immortal. He looks like he's never fucking aged. I don't know how he pulls this off. He has like a Lazarus pit or something. He talks like he's old and retired, but he looks like he's in a Japanese boy band in his 20s. So anyway, hopefully he is an immortal Japanese boy band singer and he can make Smash games forever.
Agreed.
All right. The next story, Street Fighter 6 tournament gets surprised by Chun-Li nude mod. You hear about this?
Well, usually I show footage of the stuff we're talking about, but I won't for this.
Just show like a giant sensor block. Perfect. There you go. This a giant censored Chun-Li. Here we go. A Street Fighter 6 tournament was caught off guard when a nude Chun-Li mod appeared as the host, forgetting to turn off the mod. The incident occurred during a second round match between the characters Kimberly and Chun-Li. The model of the latter was revealed to be in the nude, causing laughs from the commentators and led to the video feed being cut off. Obviously, the feed wasn't quick enough as people have saved and shared the clip online. However, due to the nature of the clip, one shouldn't view this if they don't want to see nudity. I watched it immediately. The footage remains as of this writing on Twitch, where the tournament was broadcast, though it's most certainly going to be removed soon due to it breaking the TOS of the service. Any thoughts on that there?
Well, I haven't seen the clip, and I don't really care to because it's like whatever, it's just a nude character, right? That's all it is. But let me understand this properly. So there is a competition. Two people are fighting. The host computer has these mods
I believe so.
It can't be the players, right?
Yeah, so
it's literally whoever organized this event has this mod on the game?
Yeah, whoever's Steam account or whatever, PlayStation account or whatever that they were logged into.
Why would you be the one
be
hosting the game then. You know what I mean? Like,
This guy just forgot to turn off his pervy
like,
mods.
like this guy has kind of, I don't know if the player is getting blamed, but it would suck if the player was, because it's not their fault. It's literally the
I don't have
organizers.
confirmation of this, but this was actually talked about in our Discord. I heard about it before this, but I saw Usagi Jojo talking about this and saying that the player was getting blamed, even though it was not his
It's nothing to
account.
do with the player,
It was the
yeah.
host's account.
Oh my god, it's so stupid.
And I did watch the footage, and like the players very clearly know something's wrong because they start fighting and then they kind of just stop, and then the commentary is like, "Oh, that's an interesting mod you've got there," and they're like laughing, and then it slowly cuts away. But yeah, she is fully naked. The game is gorgeous, by the way, I have to say, and there's some great mods. Like I love the Cammy. Cammy has like bra and panty mods and stuff that look excellent. I couldn't tell if they were originally in the game or not. But then I saw her wearing like Calvin Klein underwear, and I'm like, okay, that's clearly just added in. But yeah, this was a. I almost didn't like the skin because it was a full. It was just fully naked. There was no style to it. Just
Yeah.
100% naked. No thin Melina bikini or anything like that. And I'm like, it's almost
It's
uninteresting.
almost just dumb. Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
it would be more interesting if there was just like a little bit
And
of clothing on it,
it
you know?
makes me question why the host downloaded this mod, like a purely 100% naked mod. Really makes you think. But anyway, I just thought this
You
was
know
funny.
what? Whatever people want to do in their free time, sure, whatever. But like, at least check it before you're fucking hosting an event. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like,
I can't. I would
that's the only
be
thing.
if I was even thinking of having these mods. I would be so freaking paranoid for hosting anything. In fact, when we're streaming games, if I think, oh, I've modded this game before, I have to make sure I'm like, wait, let me look through my mods. Deep Rock, which we've played a lot of, I have so many mods, and a lot of them play licensed music. I have multiple Deep Rock mods that will just pump in licensed music to make it funny. Like it'll play at certain points when the game hits, and they're great. But whenever we stream Deep Rock, I have to be like, fuck, okay, let me make sure these are off. I'm not making the dwarves nude, so if I was doing that, I would really want to make sure. So I don't know. I just thought this was a funny story.
Yeah, it's a goofy story. I'm sure if it was streamed to Twitch, Twitch is gonna freak out and like remove it. I'm certain. I think that like people view games as like they're just for kids and all this stuff, and they're forgetting that like a large majority of the population grew up playing games, and so now they're all older and they're playing video games. So people probably freak out all these mods and stuff, but it's like it's why can't we just flag more tournaments as like 19 plus and just like get over, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
people freak out about this stuff so much, and it's like, are we really surprised that there's so many like mature games and mature mods and stuff out there? Just make sure that there's not like kids in your audience and you're fine. Like there's not kids watching. I don't know if it was in an arena, but like if
Well,
it's an arena, don't like have kids in the actual arena.
that's what I want to know is I wish the article went into this. I want to know how big this tournament was. I did see the clip, but I don't know anything about the tournament. I don't believe this was Evo. So I want to know, like, was there ads sponsoring this tournament? Like, who was in attendance?
Yeah.
Like, I want to know a lot of more of that. Is there going to be repercussions and all this stuff? I just think it's funny. I don't think there should be any repercussions on anybody. It should just be laughed off and you move on and you reset the match with the mod disabled.
Yeah.
But I assume that there's going to be a lot of people screaming and crying and losing their shit, especially if there's advertisers, which I don't know if there is at this point. The production value on the clip was high. Like their transition to transition away from Chung Lee's titties was very nicely done. So I imagine that there might be some type of advertisement or purse that they were competing for at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Check your
it's a
mods,
whatever
folks.
story. It's an innocent mistake. Yeah, exactly. Check your mods, and yeah, just if you think that kind of stuff is gonna happen at your event, just restrict the age of your event, and then you don't have to worry about it. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And yeah, find advertisers that are fine with that too.
Yeah. And the final story is Nintendo reportedly plans to release next-gen console during second half of 2024, but will it support backwards compatibility?
Oh,
Nintendo will release its next-gen console during the second half of 2024, according to a new report. Sources told VGC development kits for unannounced new console are now with partner studios, with a second half of 2024 release window set to give Nintendo enough time to ensure plenty of stock for launch. Apparently, this new next-gen console can be used in portable mode, like the Nintendo Switch, and has an LCD screen as opposed to an OLED screen in order to keep the cost down. It also comes with a cartridge slot for physical games, VGC said. However, the crucial question of backwards compatibility with a Nintendo Switch remains unclear. IGN has asked Nintendo for comment. In May, Nintendo said its long-rumored Switch successor won't release until April 2024 at the earliest. Nintendo president, Shuntaro Furukawa explained during an investor's presentation that the company isn't considering new hardware in the 2023-24 fiscal year, which ends March 31st, 2024. This comes despite a decline in Switch sales. It's fucking almost the second best-selling system ever. The console sold close to 18 million units in the last fiscal year, down from 23 million. It's literally in the top 3 systems of all time. Blah blah blah.
Everyone just owns one already. Like, chill out.
Why is this guy talking shit? It's
boomer shit. Man.
Yeah. Okay. Blah 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 blah.
Nintendo bad. Ooh.
Oh yeah, that's pretty much it. I skimmed the rest of it. That's all you need to know. Okay. What do you think?
I predicted this would happen because there was something that passed in the EU recently that by 2025, all portable devices need to have a removable battery. And so most people thought of this in like cell phones, right? Like the iPhone was the main part of that conversation. But I was like, wait a minute, the Switch is also portable. And I don't know about the Steam Deck if that has a removable battery, but the Switch certainly doesn't. I'm like, they have, like, either they stop producing the Switch by that time, and hopefully that would count as, like, it's fine, and just whatever units are there, but that wouldn't be a business decision for them. Like, the only logical thing I can think of is they make a new model of the same Switch, but, like, for that 2025 deadline, they make it so that there's a removable battery for new models, or they just create a new console. But at that point, why not just create a new system? So just for that reason alone, I felt like there was going to be something. I had no other real indication. If that news didn't come out, that the EU is regulating that. And again, I don't know all the details on that, but just to explain, like, specifically in Europe, they're saying, like, certain cables have to be with certain phones now, it has to be more universal, and, like, their electronics have to be a certain way, which includes the removable batteries. So it's like, if you're going to do it in that market, you might as well just do it everywhere.
Globally, yeah.
So that's why I was like, okay, I know for sure, like, this is going to change, like, Apple and Samsung and whatever else, but is this also going to change video games? It had to affect the Switch, because that's the only other thing that would really, like, rely on that, right? Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I'm not super surprised by the news. It's just interesting that they're sending out all these test kits and stuff now, if that's true. Like, why even bother sending those out before just announcing that there might be another system? Because that's always going to inevitably leak anyways.
Yeah.
There's always going to be somebody that's working at a game studio that's like, oh, guess what? You know, Joseph, I'm working on this thing. Don't tell anyone. Haha. And then, like, Joseph, whoever the fuck that is going to go tell, I don't know, Francis. And then they're just all going to go through, and eventually the news is going to leak.
Francis
so, like,
tells
why not
everybody.
Exactly. So why not just go ahead of it and just be like, I'm not going to send out a test kit until we announce officially this is going to happen.
You know what's interesting is before reading this article, I figured this was going to be the Switch successor. I figured this was going to be a Switch 2 directly, and the discussion would be whether or not it's backwards compatible. After reading this article, and after you reminding me over the new EU laws, I'm like, what if they are just halting Switch production, and this is just going to be the next Switch? It's just going to be a new model of Switch, and they haven't announced it, but just hearing a new model obviously starts the rumor mill up. So all we have confirmation of is something new that is coming out from Nintendo. But it said right there, it is portable, just like the Switch, and it has the cartridge dock just like the Switch, but it's LCD screens and not the new OLED screen, which I think the standard Switch is an LCD screen. So they could just make the argument that the OLED one was a limited time thing. That's fine.
Yeah.
But then the feature of this one is a removable battery. And there you go.
That's what I'm wondering. Like, but then why would they even bother with that? Why not just make it a new system?
Well, the only
Because
reason...
then you would end up in another cycle by 2025. That's a whole other, like, normally there would be another system by then.
The only reason I can see why is that the Switch is just doing stupid numbers still. It's in the, I want to say, top 3, if not top 2. Here, let me look it up really quick. Top selling consoles of all time. I just want to see if it's cracked the list here. Yeah, Switch is number 3. DS is number 2. PS2 is number 1. It's got quite a ways before it will get number 2. But if it gets to number 2, it could be number 1. So Switch is sitting at...
It will. In an infinite timeline, it will, because the eShop being shut down for DS's production done.
Yeah.
Switch being the one, it will be.
So Switch is at 129 million. DS is at 154 million. PS2 is at 155 million. So if it hits number 2, it's got a long stretch, but if it hits number 2, it could easily hit number 1.
I think it'll surpass the PS2.
That's insane to me. But because the PS2 was just stupid numbers. So it could be that. It could be, like, do they want to see if they can keep pushing this? I mean, Mario Kart still sells stupid numbers. You see how much of an insane deal Zelda was this year. People still love their Switch, and Nintendo isn't the worst at backwards compatibility, but they're not the best at it either. So my main concern with them doing a next Nintendo system is the Switch was the first Nintendo system that really went into the digital market. So I've bought a bunch of games on the Switch digitally when I could have been buying them on Steam. If whatever the successor to the Switch is announced, if they say your purchases aren't carrying over and playable on that next system, that is going to be a huge blow to me, and I think to a lot of people. So whatever comes next, I think we're now in an era where whatever you buy, especially digitally, needs to carry over with you in your library, at least in my opinion. And I would, it's already saying that it's got a cartridge port, whether or not this is just a new model. Maybe it's a Switch Pro, which would be a half measure, or maybe it is a new system. So if it does have that little port, they better also take Switch games as well. I think it's appropriate to at least take the last gen. But I think starting in this gen, and this goes for PlayStation and Xbox as well, I think you need to start carrying entire libraries over, especially when you're effectively a PC. You're a little convenient PC at this point. The Switch is a very creative and portable PC. This rule applies the least to them, but for Xbox and PlayStation, they're just PCs, especially when they come in with different models and all that. So that's my main thing. Nintendo's been never good with carrying over their digital purchases, even like we saw with the 3DS this year and that whole disaster. So I would hate to see them repeat their former mistakes. But I guess we'll see. I'm leaning towards this either being a Switch Pro or just a new model Switch. I don't even think this is going to be a Switch 2. Nintendo loves their gimmicks, and while the Switch is pretty perfect, they have to, whatever the next system is from Nintendo, it can't just be a more powerful Switch. There has to be some new thing they try. Nintendo loves innovating and changing the game. They do it every single time. Even if it's effectively just a Switch, what's the new thing? Think Wii to Wii U. It was still a Wii, but they added in the pad. So what would a Switch U look like? What are they going to add to the Switch to separate it from what we have? What's the new feature?
The thing I love about Nintendo is that it's hard for me to even guess what that would be because they're so creative. And, if I were to go in my limited scope of what I think they could do is maybe adding more functionality like that Mario Party thing where multiple Switches can connect together and it affects games that way. And so incentivizing owning multiple of a system and having those systems interact differently. But and that's only me thinking like the Wii to Wii U comparison, right? Because the gamepad was kind of that changer for that. So like maybe having a system where people don't know what I'm talking about, in Mario Party, if you have two copies of Mario Party and you have two Switches, there's like a few mini games that you can play just exclusively with the two systems next to each other.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's any other game that really does that. So I would be curious if that was like an early tech demo and if they're gonna do something like that with the next system. But I don't know. I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, besides like trying to comply with the EU, would there be any other incentive? I feel like there are some games that just don't run well on the hardware anymore. Like you see some games start to chug along. So I wonder if they would want to improve how those like games run on the system to keep up with modern games and like the PS5 and the Xbox. And with the games that are coming out on Steam, right? I don't think the Switch could support a lot of those games that are being developed. So I would wonder if that would be a reason to upgrade their hardware. Does Nintendo even care about that? And more so with the backwards compatibility, if I'm being completely honest, I think it's a Netflix situation where even if they don't make it backwards compatible, people will still buy it, and that's the sad truth. But I would be pretty devastated if they don't make it backwards compatible personally. I can't sit here and like lie and pretend that I wouldn't buy the next system. Because the truth is that Nintendo was one of the only things keeping my passion for games alive, really, in modern gaming anyways.
Yeah.
So I can't sit here and be like, okay, well, if they don't make it backwards compatible, fuck them. Their sales are going to tank and all this stuff. The truth is, there are people that are going to buy that system just like they do with everything else. But it would be a huge blow, and I think that they would lose a lot of consumer trust.
Sell.
And I think it would impact not necessarily system sales, but digital sales, I think. I think it would make people move back in the direction of physical potentially. But again, I see that Netflix situation with the passwords and everyone was outraged by it. And then all of a sudden they're all still buying, like Netflix went up in stock because people were still getting Netflix accounts, even though they were locked out of their family accounts. So it's like, really, there's no incentive for Nintendo to do it. But at the same time, if all of these people that work for Nintendo really do feel this way about video games and they want to continue to embody this thing that they're doing, they should do it.
Nintendo's in a tough position. They're at the top of the mountain with hardware that was released in 2017, and in 2017 that hardware wasn't up to snuff. So do they plug their ears and ride it out and hope that they don't need third-party games? I think that is viable for Nintendo. They could do that. All of their big sellers are first-party and second-party games. How long can they do that, though? They must already be thinking about what the successor is and how they can do it. I have two ideas off the top of my head that they could do for a Switch successor that changes things a little bit. The first one is wacky. You have the Switch, but you have a screen to make it even more portable, because the thing is, the Switch is almost not portable. It doesn't fit in your pocket like a 3DS did or a Game Boy did. Here's what you do. You take the newer technology that I've seen in cell phones where the screen is foldable. And so you make a Switch Advance SP, but the screen folds in half. So I don't have my Switch with me, but imagine the Switch, and even in the middle of the screen folds in. And then you can have the new innovative games is you sit the Switch on your table and you have a screen on the bottom and you have a screen on the top, and you can play like pinball games that way. You take a controller, you can play pinball games, or you can play old Pac-Man or something, because you have the top screen and the bottom screen, but then you fold it out and it's just like a Switch. But then you can also snap it closed and it'll fit more conveniently in your pocket. Miyamoto, give me money if that's what you're doing. That's not
a bad idea.
The second idea, which is a little more conventional and logical, but Nintendo likes wacky, that's why I think the first idea. The second idea is Nintendo, like, really hit money with the Switch with portable gaming that is not portable gaming. It's pretty much taking a home console on the go. So much so that Valve, who innovates all the time, decided to rip it off and make a portable PC effectively with the Steam Deck.
Right.
Here's what the Switch 2 does. Valve ripped us off. We ripped Valve off. what does the Steam Deck do that the Switch can't? Well, it's open source, and it's pretty much a little computer. So you name the Switch to Nintendo PC, and it's literally just a Steam Deck, but it's a Switch. And so you have like an operating system on it. You can play other games. You can like put emulators on it. Because this is what Valve's Steam Deck is like. Is they're just like, but they're very user friendly, which Nintendo is known for not being. They're like, yeah, fuck it. You can play your fucking pirated copy of Super Mario Sunshine on there. So Nintendo could go back at them and be like, you know what, fuck it. On the Nintendo Switch 2, you can play Half-Life if you want. You can install your Steam on the Switch 2. Because what happened is Nintendo made that, and then Steam made that, and now all these other third-party companies are actually making their rip-off Steam Decks. But what if Nintendo made their own Steam Deck, which is just a rip-off of them? You know what I mean? A first-party Nintendo Steam Deck, effectively, and you call it Nintendo PC or something. Nintendo Computer. And it's a portable, all that. That's my 2 ideas. Nintendo, if you steal any of those, I am going to get very angry and froth at the mouth, screaming, hire me.
I can see them... This might be a little too technologically advanced and not, like, scale well with people's homes. But I could also see them doing, like, the YouTube casting type system, but, like, casting your system to the TV. So, like, right now, there's not really a game console that you can simply cast to the TV the same way that you would cast a YouTube video to a TV, like a smart TV. But that would be an interesting idea, too. Like, oh, you don't have to set up a dock and an HDMI on all this stuff anymore.
You just swipe
You
it.
literally just press a button like you do on your phone, and it puts it on the TV, and you can play the game there.
The whole thing on the Switch is the docking is so easy, so I could see them being like, you sit down and you just go swipe, and it just casts it on the TV.
Yeah. So that's another thing that I could see them maybe doing one day in the future, but I just don't think people's houses are equipped for that for the most part.
Yeah, the input delay would be the big hurdle to come over. But if
or like a projector or something coming out of it, like, oh, you know, like try another attempt at like a VR or something.
You don't even need a TV. There's a fucking little projector in the back of the Switch 2, and you just plop it there, and it projects on your wall.
On your wall, exactly. Yeah.
All right. Well, that is the news. I'm sure whatever Nintendo makes, I will fucking buy it because I am a dirty, dirty whore.
Okay, and now we've got Anything Goes. And I told James, you know, I like to come in and hear the articles firsthand from him and then react to it. I like it when he asks me a question for Anything Goes and I'm not prepared for it, so we don't actually discuss this stuff before we film. But it's like the one thing we're missing is that you're the only one asking the Anything Goes questions, and you and I approach games differently. So let's see what happens if we alternate and I also ask a question.
I like to be a hoarder in control and be like, this is my control.
Well, today I am the one with the question. Are you ready for the question?
No!
Okay, here is the question. If you were to introduce somebody to video games today that has never played a video game before, what games would you introduce them to?
Peggle 2. Good night, everybody.
I knew this was gonna happen.
Peggle 2.
Twitter is like, fuck you.
I want to see how long it goes on for. Okay.
I don't think he watches this.
Someone I'm introducing games to, they've never played games.
They've never played a game. They're like Mario who? They have no clue like what a video game is, but you're introducing them today to these games. You could choose as many games as you want, as many genres, whatever it is.
How old are
they?
But
I'm just 21 is the best number, right?
Okay.
Let's go 21.
Okay.
19 is the age of being able to drink in where we are, but we'll say 21.
That's interesting. That's a good question. First, I would check to see if they need to go to the hospital or anything, because like, how in the modern day have you gone to this point and not played games? But I guess there is some crazy folks out there.
I know somebody that's never played a video game before, and she literally played video games. Her first time wasn't with me, but it was when we knew each other.
So here's...
And she was like singing me about it. She's like, oh my god, god, I played Mario Kart for the first time. This is so cool.
That's crazy to me. The way I tend to go about this thing in this hypothetical situation is I would probably try to see what their interests are and go about it that way. So I'm trying to relate this to how if someone's like you, for example, saying I don't like movies. So I've shown you a whole wide selection of movies. However, if someone said I've never watched horror movies, that narrows it down into a category where I could be like, oh, I need to show you this, 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 this. So seeing video games as a broad spectrum, because there's horror games, there's comedy games, there's family games, there's action games, there's sci-fi games, there's all that stuff. Similar to film, the way I would approach this hypothetical person for their first game is I'd try to relate it to something else they like as a stepping stone to what they get into. I know this is the most ridiculous answer because
That's fine.
Peggle 2 is the easy answer. So like for example, let's say they were a horror fan. Let's say they were a horror fan, right? And they never played video games. My personal go-tos would be my favorite horror games. Because those are the ones I think are the best horror games. And those aren't even the popular picks. But I would go to that person that was like, oh, I love horror movies, but I've never gotten to horror games. And I've actually had this conversation because there's people that think, oh, they're too scary. Oh, they're scary. So my favorite...
You think they're too scary. What do you mean?
Yeah, I do. Well, it's more so like...
The games, I mean, not
it's
the
more
movies.
so I don't want to stream horror games because I just know in those moments of fear and panic, I will be screaming... words that will get me immediately kicked off Twitch. So here's what I would recommend if you're a horror fan. I would recommend Alan Wake for one, and I would preface it with Alan Wake is a masterpiece in storytelling. However, with the caveat of you're a horror fan. Do you like Twin Peaks? You better, even though it's not even specifically horror. But if you like Twin Peaks, Alan Wake is literally just a Twin Peaks ripoff, blatantly. But it's a great one. It's a great story. It's a great video game version of that. And then the other one is Fear. I'd recommend Fear. What is Fear? Well, it's a horror game that doesn't do the bullshit that I hate from other horror games. What I hate about the modern horror or the average horror game is that it's survival horror, and then it limits your ammo, or it limits you in making intentionally bad controls, and all these things. But Fear is first and foremost a first-person shooter. It doesn't limit you. In fact, you're very powerful, but the game does an amazing job of still being scary. So you have a full arsenal, but the game's ambiance and everything is still great. And I would relate it to, oh, you're a horror fan. Are you a fan of Silence of the Lambs? Well, the lead villain in this is take Hannibal Lecter and give him telepathy. So imagine Hannibal Lecter whispering in your brain and he's not even in the fucking room. He's somewhere else killing somebody, but he's able to talk in your mind. It's amazing. It's amazing, an amazing game. I can't wait to stream it. Another one would be, oh my god, just crossed my... Prey. Do you like sci-fi horror, like Alien and all this stuff? Prey is an amazing, amazing game. And I'm talking about the original Prey from 2006. It's got great mechanics. It's got unique mechanics. And it's also a great first-time game for somebody because you can't lose. So the plot of Prey is... this is one of the rarest games. This is one of the rare games I beat on the hardest difficulty. Because you can't lose. It's just when you're playing on the hardest difficulty and you're on the final mission, you're dying every 5 seconds, but you keep going, so it's fine. The whole plot of Prey is you play a Native American guy and your girlfriend owns a casino and you're kind of like out of touch with your culture and you're like, whatever, this is dumb, let's go leave this shit. And then suddenly fucking aliens come and abduct everybody, including your grandfather, your girlfriend, and all this stuff. Spoiler alert, but this is like the main mechanic of the game. In the first level, you literally fucking die. And then you go to the native heaven, effectively. And your grandfather is like, it's not your time yet. You have a mission now. And you're like, I thought all this native shit was all fucking bullshit. And it's like, nope, you're dead, and it's all real. And so it's actually, a lot of people give this game shit, but it made it super fucking cool. And so you have Pretty much every time you die, you go to the native spirit world, and you have to do a little minigame mechanic where you're hunting eagles to get your health back up. And then you go and you start right at the point where you left off. There's no checkpoints. There's no, you start at mission 1. Literally, where you die, where your body is, you go for 5 minutes, get your health back, and your body rises back up, and you're right there. But it's made it feels very much like a Doom game. It has very unique mechanics, and even though it's a very old shooter, it's fucking amazing. So that one I would absolutely recommend to newcomers if they're a horror fan. Then I'm like, are you more... I think the easiest way is I would just go about it in film. And if they don't like movies, I'd be like, you don't like games or movies? What's wrong with you? It's like...
You're broken.
Are you a sci-fi fan? Are you a Star Trek fan? You got to play Mass Effect. Are you a Star Wars fan? Well, some of my favorite games of all time are Star Wars games. What a great introduction to play Jedi Academy or play KOTOR. A lot of people think KOTOR is better than Star Wars, and that's not even an entirely wrong opinion. So what a great segue. Huh?
I kind of feel that way.
God. And also, I am a movie game apologist. So I would be like, what are your favorite movies? If a movie game kicks in, I'd be like, I'd recommend that. Oh, you like Hugh Jackman's Wolverine? X-Men Origins Wolverine is a fucking amazing game made by one of my favorite developers. The movie is terrible. The game's amazing. Spider-Man 2, amazing game. The Batman Begins game is great. Oh, yeah, you like comics? Oh my god, if you like comic books, X-Men Legends, fucking amazing. I've played it to death. All the Batman games. There's a good or at least decent game, no matter what you're a fan of, like which superhero you're a fan of, right? Oh, you like sports? Well, let me introduce you to the Midway titles from the early 2000s. Look how fucking fun these are. Oh my god, you're a wrestling fan. I've got such sites to show you. I've got SmackDown versus Raw. I've got Know Your Role. So that, anyway, in short, I think that's how I'd go about it. Me personally, I think a lot of people would answer this question and they'd be like, you need to start at Tetris or you need to start at Mario. If this was my kid, my hypothetical kid, that might be the answer. It might be like well, you're getting into this for the first time along with everything. But since you said 20-something-year-old, they should have some world experience. So I should be able to relate their gaming experience to something. I'm a huge metal fan. Are they a huge metal fan? Fucking play Brutal Legend. Are you kidding me? It's one of my favorite games ever, and it's like a celebration of metal music. So I think if you gave me a little taste of each person's personality, I could, I think, relate a game to them, in my opinion.
I think that's a really good answer. And
Peggle
when
2.
I was thinking of Peggle 2.
Peggle 2.
When I was thinking about this question, I kind of led down the path that you were mentioning, which is like the whole Tetris, Mario, that kind of stuff. I don't think I would start someone on Tetris, but I do think that like a Mario game is a must. Like I think that anyone who has ever touched a video game should play a Mario game at some point. I think I would go with like a 2D, like a Super Mario World type Mario game. I wouldn't put them in a 3D game. I think like some of the 3D games don't age that great unless you're talking about like 3D World. That's the like Wii U one, right?
Yeah, Wii U and Switch. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think like a 2D Mario would be good. I really like what you said about relating to the person because I think like all of culture is so intertwined now that you can find a game for everything now. Like before it used to be only certain styles of games would come out, and now as time has gone on, there's a game for literally everything. I mean, I literally played a game where I was working at a laundromat building an arcade.
Right, yeah.
You know, so it's like, are you into business? Here, you should play Roller Coaster Tycoon.
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah,
You
great
know,
pick.
like,
Yeah.
is this like, it really, it depends. So I like the way that you opened that question, and it's actually given me more things to think about because I came into this going, okay, I would definitely make someone play Mass Effect once they kind of start to understand video game mechanics, because I think Mass Effect is just such a well-rounded experience. And if anyone likes any kind of story in a TV, in a book, in a movie, anything, they're gonna enjoy Mass Effect most times. I was thinking about like Spider-Man for the PS4 because that's kind of like a you explore the world. If you've liked any kind of comic book characters, it's just kind of a good introduction to like comic book character mechanics too. Um, what else? I almost would say Halo because I think like the first Halo is like a relic in some ways for video games.
I'm old.
You know, I think like when you think about the early 2000s, and like I wasn't even a Halo player, but it's just there was this certain like community of people that were going to LAN parties and all this kind of stuff, and the original Xbox and that like certain energy and punch behind it. There's nothing that captures that better than a Halo, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So just to like give somebody a glimpse of like the early 2000s, I would say Halo.
Yeah, if the goal is to like kind of teach them what gaming is and was, I would probably be like, okay, I'm gonna pick one game from every console for you. And I would
Interesting.
start at like Atari 2600. And I would be
I wouldn't even start there though, because I feel like somebody jumping into games in this year at age 21, are they gonna play like an aged arcade
well,
type
that's
game, you
only
know?
if the question is tell me what gaming is as a whole. Like, and again, to relate it to film, it's like teach me about film. I would probably give you like one film per decade. So I would give you like a film from the 1910s, the 1920s, the 1930s, the 1940s. So I would probably start early. I'd be like, this is Pong. This is like Intellivision. This is Atari 2600. This is early PC gaming. This is DOS. This is NES, Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, PS1. Here's the Game Boy, by the way. And I would just show them quickly one game from everything that I think represents the console. So I would think Atari 2600, I would be like, the fucking, what's that Dungeons and Dragons game? That one where you're the dot and you have to fight the dragon. I think it's called Dungeons and Dragons, and you have to take the key and you go boop and you take the key. I'd show them that one. NES, it would probably have to be Mario. For all the early Nintendo ones, it would have to be Mario. If you're showing like one
Yeah, it
game,
has to be.
it has to be Mario. So it's just like look at the evolution of it. So yeah, look at Mario to Mario World. And then Mario 64, right? And so that's kind of a great evolution. Sega, it would be Sonic. And then, yeah, PS1, you would show... it wouldn't even be a game I played because I played like Tekken and Crash Team Racing on the PS1 when I was a kid. But, I don't know, you'd show them like the first Metal Gear, maybe, or Siphon Filter. It was first
Or
Metal
like
Gear?
Tomb Raider even.
Tomb Raider, that's a good one. Yeah, that's a good one. Dreamcast, what would you show? Space Channel 5? I don't know.
Yeah, probably Space Channel 5 is a really good one, or Fantasy Star,
Mm-hmm.
or I would even stretch and say Power Stone. You know, but I think Space Channel 5 is the perfect answer. Or
PC,
like yeah, Space Channel 5.
PC, I would show shooters personally. So I would show Doom, and then I'd go Doom to Quake, and then I'd go Quake to Half-Life, because that was kind of the shooter evolution. And shooters are mainly there, but you...
That's at radio.
Oh, yeah. And then you would also have to show RTS games, because those were only done on PC. So I would show, like, Warcraft 3 or the first StarCraft. Xbox would be Halo. PS2 would be God of War. 3...
Out of every PS2 game, you would pick God of War.
What else? I was not a PS2 person. What other choices are there for the PS2?
No, I'm just surprised. Like,
I'm really
even
not
saying
a...
that. I couldn't even like tell you because PS2 is such a huge library, and even we were talking about PS1 and we didn't mention Final Fantasy VII, which is like Final Fantasy VII would be a game that I would introduce anybody to.
Well,
That like
on the PS3, I would show Uncharted.
yeah,
So you have
no,
God of
Uncharted
War
came to
and
mind
Uncharted.
too. But like PS2 is just like there's so many JRPGs. There's so many. It's like there's so many games on the
But
PS2.
that's what I think about the 360. I'm like, do I show Halo again? Like, what do you do? Do you just...
Well, that would be Mass Effect for me.
Yeah, but then when you get into the 360, they kind of become more like like they're on every platform. That's when it starts, because it's like, oh, maybe Bioshock was considered like a pinnacle of that era, and it was kind of a 360 game. Oh, Gears of War, probably Gears of War 1, and then PS4, Xbox One. Who cares? I'm just kidding. But really though, at that era, I would probably I'd just start showing select games. You know.
Well, that's where I say Spider-Man.
Oh, okay. I don't even know what I would show. I wouldn't show.
The problem is we get into like remasters and stuff at this point, right? So it's like, would you show the Return to Arkham series?
Maybe Arkham Knight, I guess.
Right? Like, but does that even count?
Yeah. Oh, and you got to sprinkle a fighting game in there just to show what fighting games are. So Street Fighter 2 would have to be shown. That's like the essential fighting game, right?
For GameCube.
Because you could also go by genre. So at this point, I think then your brain would go, what genres have you not hit? So we didn't talk about a fighting game, so I would say Street Fighter 2.
No, I was gonna say, like, I would show Melee for GameCube, but I think that's obvious.
That's fair. We have to do that. You haven't shown a Metroidvania. I'd show Super Metroid.
You haven't shown a Zelda.
Yeah, because I don't.
A Link to the Past?
Yeah.
Ocarina of Time?
Yeah, I guess a Link.
What do we pick for N64? We didn't even talk
Mario
about
64.
Nintendo. Oh, I don't think that should be the game for N64.
Well, my opinion...
my
opinion would be Banjo. But that's my personal
That's a good pick. That's a really good pick. I would say Banjo is a better pick than Mario 64.
We won! Banjo Bros! We won, Banjo Bros. We won. Banjo is a better pick than Mario 64. Let's go.
My opinion of Mario 64 is really slipping. I used to love it, and I fought for so long for it. It's just hard.
Anyway. Banjo Bros won.
Banjo Bros
won. We won.
So what would be your Switch game? Odyssey?
Yeah, I think, yeah. Odyssey is just so good. It's so good. It's so stupid. I want to play it right now. It's so fucking good. I can't tell you a better Switch game.
Yeah, I'm thinking back to N64 still. I would probably show GoldenEye or Banjo.
GoldenEye was an essential pick at the time. But GoldenEye, to me, what GoldenEye did well is that it showed that you could do shooters. Like, when I think of GoldenEye, I think of the stupid meme, GoldenEye walked so Halo could run. So, like...
I'm not even thinking in that capacity.
But, like, when everyone says, like, for me, GoldenEye, that was the game that showed that shooters could be done on console. Because before, shooters were only on PC, or they were only done well on PC. And then Halo was the first shooter to come out that was, like, a mind-blowingly good shooter that was on console. And that changed everything. But, would Halo have even happened if it wasn't for GoldenEye being like, look, it works. See?
I was thinking it more of, like, in a movie tie-in way.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Like, you know, look, you can play as James Bond. Like, that's so cool. Like, I think that would be more my sell.
Yeah, that's fair, yeah.
I guess Tomb Raider would also
We haven't shown a racing game. I would probably show a super high fidelity Gran Turismo that looks like real life, because that's what Gran Turismo's always been about, is being super simmy and realistic and pretty. So it's like, look at what's capable of gaming. Because I remember even on PS1, I didn't like Gran Turismo, but do you remember being a kid and seeing Gran Turismo on PS1? I thought it looked real.
Yeah, it looked really good.
I thought it looked like, and if you look at it now, it looks like shit. But I remember at the time,
but at the time,
it looked so high of a bar compared to the rest of the games on PS1. That's anytime I think of Gran Turismo, I'm like, that's like graphical standard. Like that's like the new standard.
We haven't even mentioned like a beat 'em up, like a TMNT, Simpsons,
Oh,
X-Men, anything like that.
yeah, so
Like,
then you go into arcades. So yeah, beat 'em up, I would probably show. This covers so many bases. Show Turtles in Time, or
yeah,
yeah, you
yeah.
show Turtles in Time. That cut because
You don't think the Simpsons one would be good?
no, I think Turtles in Time. Like I would almost want to say Streets of Rage or Final Fight or something, but Turtles in Time just checks so many fucking boxes. It's like, oh look, it's the Ninja Turtles. Oh look, it's an arcade game. Oh look, it's a beat 'em up. Oh look, it's a 4-player co-op game. You got so much fucking covered in Turtles in Time. Um, yeah. Oh yeah, and then you have to show like Pac-Man. You have to show like Pac-Man. You have to show Galaga. You have to show like the icons. You have to show Tetris. So
We're
yeah.
just ruining this person's life at this point. We're like, you're
This is this
becoming a
person.
hardcore gamer
I
now.
just asked a question. Let me leave. Not until you look at Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare, motherfucker. Ah! I know what microtransactions are. Ah! Welcome to my hell, bitch. Do you have anything else to add?
No, that's perfect.
All right, that was the Melee Games podcast. You can find us everywhere where we will be playing games. We'll be doing more podcasts. We will be playing games with y'all, and I can't wait till the next one. Anything else, Kay? Ah!
Oh my god. Well, I want to know, for those watching, what game would you introduce to somebody who is playing video games for the first time? What is your go-to picks? What are your rationale behind those picks? How many games would you show them? Tell us everything.
Why are you showing me loot boxes in Battlefront 2? Because you need to understand what we fucking went through. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. That's right. I'm pretending you're EA now. Oh dear God. You have to live with me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do.
Good night, everybody.
Bye!